जजेस का हम पार्ट में देख लेंगे, आप फिलहाल उसको यहाँ पे लेके आओ। हो गए?
Hello.
Mike, who are you? Do you want a separate mic or this is also? तो ये वाला आकाश, are you fine with the Yes. You sure?
Yes. Okay.
Which time I take?
Hello.
check. Hello.
A very good afternoon to everyone. I am Dhairya Gauri, chairperson of the 5th edition of Mediation Bombay International Dispute Resolution Competition, the flagship event of Maharashtra National University, Mumbai. This year, Mediation Bombay saw an incredible display of mediation skills with 50 teams competing in the preliminary rounds from across India and abroad. After intense competition, we have now reached the final stage, the Tripartite round. As the only competition in India to host this unique format, we are thrilled to witness this highly anticipated round. We are deeply honored to have esteemed dignitaries with us today to judge and mediate this final round. Starting off with Mr. J.P. Singh. Sir is a very well-known civil, commercial and arbitration lawyer and also an accomplished mediator. He has meticulously pioneered the mediation movement in India and worked tirelessly to spread awareness and build the capacity of trained mediators in various spheres along the country. He was appointed founder organizing secretary of the Delhi High Court Mediation and Conciliation Center, Samadhan, and is the president-elect of Madhyam, International Council for Conflict Resolution. He has been appointed as mediator by Supreme Court of India, Delhi High Court, and various courts in several complex disputes. He has also been a part of various training programs for mediators held within India and abroad. He was a part of the committee appointed by MCPC to draft the Mediation Act. He was also appointed by the government as part of the committee to draft regulations under the Mediation Act 2023. Next, on our panel of judges, we have Mr. Anish Wadia, who is a full-time arbitrator and mediator with experience acting as such in common and civil law jurisdictions as well as in Hong Kong, China and the Middle East. He is a qualified lawyer with full rights of audience before courts in India as an advocate and in England and Wales as a solicitor advocate, as well as being admitted before the AIFC courts in Kazakhstan. He holds the distinction of being the youngest ever individual in the world and also the first Indian qualified lawyer in the world to be accredited as a chartered arbitrator in CR, UK's over 100 plus year history, since being established in 1915. This post nominal for an arbitrator is equivalent to what King's Counsel is for barristers in England. He is also the only Indian lawyer in the world who is accredited as professional mediator in Russia and also by CEDR in the UK. Additionally, as an IMI certified mediator in Netherlands and by the MCPC of the Supreme Court of India. He is also ranked by Lexology since 2021. He is regularly invited as a speaker, trainer and lecturer of international arbitration and mediation in India and across the globe with Brazil, Cameroon, Dubai, England, Hong Kong, Kenya, Malaysia, Pakistan, Rwanda and Spain, the Bahamas, Zambia, etc., including for capacity building trainings in some of these countries for sitting members of the judiciary and other high offices, as well as at the universities of Oxford and Cambridge in the UK. Next on our panel, we have Mrs. Rona Ginat, who is a highly experienced mediator, lecturer and legal professional with over a decade of expertise in dispute resolution. She has successfully mediated hundreds of cases across commercial law, intellectual property, high-tech and family law, consistently achieving high settlement and satisfaction rates. A CEDR accredited mediator and licensed lawyer. She holds master's degrees in both business law and dispute resolution. In addition to her mediation practice in Tel Aviv, she serves as a lecturer in Bar Ilan University and Reichman University and trains lawyers in negotiation and mediation advocacy skills. She also trains junior mediators and serves as a mediator in the Mahood Project, a mandatory pre-mediation program in civil courts. Her contributions extend internationally, having participated as a professional mediator, judge, and coach in negotiation and mediation competitions around the world, from Dubai on EDR ODR international competitions and International Chamber of Commerce's mediation competition for over 9 years. Today's round will be facilitated by a professional mediator, that is Mr. Akash Gupta, who is an assistant professor and assistant director of the Center for Alternative Dispute Resolution at Jindal Global Law School. He also teaches arbitration as a visiting faculty at the National Law School of India University, Bangalore. An alumnus of Tamil Nadu National Law University, Akash carried his LLM in International Commercial Arbitration Law from Stockholm University, Sweden. He has also attended prestigious programs at the Paris Arbitration Academy and the Hague Academy of International Law on full scholarships and sponsorships respectively. In 2023, he was recognized as the Young ADR Academic of the Year by the Asia Pacific Center for Arbitration and Mediation. A prolific author with 20 publications, including 8 Scopus Index publications, Sir's research covers diverse areas such as sports arbitration, consumer ADR, mediation, and online dispute resolution. His work has been published by renowned publishers such as Sage, Springer, Routledge, and Thomson Reuters. Beyond academia, he actively volunteers as an arbitrator and judge in moot court and ADR competitions, including WIS, JESSUP, and FDI. He has also conducted workshops at over 50 law schools across India. Since joining Jindal Global Law School in 2019, Sir has held several editorial and advisory roles with leading arbitration and law reviews, including our very own MNLU Mumbai's Indian Review of International Arbitration. We offer a very warm welcome to our esteemed dignitaries. We truly appreciate your time and presence, and we hope you find the final round engaging. All of us are looking forward to your feedback and learning as much as we can under your expertise. With that, we wish our participants the very best of luck. Let's get started with the final round.
Good to see all the 3 parties here. My name is Akash. I'm an empaneled mediator with International Space Mediation and Arbitration Center. You may address me by my first name, Akash. And if it is fine with all of you, I can also address you by your first name. Does that work? Yep. Okay. So the purpose of this mediation session is to make sure that we get to hear what are your problems from your perspective, and we try to find a mutually acceptable solution which works with all the 3 parties. Now, before we proceed further, let's spend some time understanding the roadmap for this session so that we know what you have to expect in the next 90 minutes. So the time limit for this session is 90 minutes. We'll have to wrap up by 90 minutes. And first, we'll start with explaining your problems from your viewpoints, and we'll all together try to identify the basic issues of disagreements in between 3 of you, and then we have to make sure that we go a step further to find out potential solutions so that we get something out of this session and we try to resolve the issue which is developing from a long time. And the goal of this session is to make sure that we try to follow the process to make sure that we understand each other's view and we try to find a solution. So let's not jump into conclusions, agreements, disagreements. It's better to make sure that your voice is heard and you understand your problem. You also give some space to understand the other party's problem. Talking about my role in this session is only facilitated. I will not be having an evaluative role in this session, which means I'm not going to adjudicate, I'm not going to judge this session. My job here is to only help you out, discuss the issues and try to find a solution. So in simple words, you have to figure out your own solutions to your own problems. It's just that I'm trying to channelize, provide you more like certain help to make sure that you guys don't go in different directions, but it's actually your call to either have certain agreements or having no agreements. It's all a voluntary process. So, but I want you, all 3 of you, to put some blinkers to your eyes so that we focus more on the future relationship in between 3 of the parties, and let's not talk too much about the past transactions or bad experiences, and let's look forward to having a fruitful discussion. Also, one of the ground rules that if some of you want to take some break, you are always welcome to ask for a breakout time. And if one of you think that you want to talk to me separately, and if it is required, let's say there is a deadlock in between three of you, then we can call for a separate session, the caucus, but it's not mandatory, depends on the situation. If required, you can propose that. So before we proceed with the next part, does all the parties have the authority to mediate here, and all of you have the consent to mediate?
Yes, we do.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
So let's talk about some of the other ground rules that whatever we are going to discuss here, it's all going to be confidential. So I'll be making notes here, but I'll be destroying this by the end of this session. And none of the discussions happening here are going to be testified in a court of law or later on in an arbitration proceeding. And just a request from my side, it's always better to make sure that we don't interrupt each other while, let's say, Oralis is speaking and you have certain disagreements. It's always better that you make some notes and you get back to the points by Oralis when you get the time. And let's not try to name calling and look at too much at your past, relationships or, bad experiences. So in short, this is how we are going to do this for the next 85 minutes or so. First, I invite all of you to give your opening statement where you can talk about your viewpoints. Then we try to make sure that we have an agenda finalized so that we exactly know that what are the points of discussions here. Then that will take us to the joint session. We'll be trying to discuss in between ourselves. If at all it is required in case of a deadlock, we'll move to a separate session caucus, or otherwise we'll move back to the last stage, which is closing statement. Just to make sure that we follow time, we have 90 minutes, just make sure that we have some time to make sure that all of us get an opportunity to make a closing so that we understand that what are the pointers we agree to, what are the pointers we don't agree to so that we can park it for a later point of time. Now with this, I'd like to invite Oralis to start this mediation session because they are the ones who propose this mediation. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mediator. Thank you, Space Gen. Thank you, Astrospace, for being here today. I think it really means a lot to us that you took time off your very busy schedule to discuss our problems here. Having said that, Mr. Mediator, I really do appreciate the framework that you set for us today, where we discuss our problems, then we come up with solutions, and we all the more take a forward-looking approach. I resonate with that thoroughly. And Mr. Mediator, I just want to let you know that we are in your hands today. Our outcome, how our session goes today is really all up to you. And I can safely say that we're in very good hands today. Now, having said that, once again, let me introduce myself. I am Tigan. I'm from Oralis. And today, I'm here at this mediation table, not to win, not to lose. For me, mediation is not about winning or losing. It's not about going to court. Mediation is a place where both parties get what they want and go home with happy smiles. And I hope we get that achievement today. So, a bit more about myself and why we do what we do here at Oralis. I still remember as a child, I used to run along the luscious green fields of Oralis. I used to play cricket, play catching with my friends. But this is of the past now. Children of this generation no longer have this privilege due to corporations taking over our land and exploiting it. This is why we decided to step in and decided to venture into space. Space is an opportunity of many, many limitless, boundless resources, right? This is our second chance at giving our future generation a good life, and we cannot let this second chance go to waste. This is why our project together is very important to me, and I'm sure it's equally important to you as well. So having said that, Mr. Mediator, if you could just take this down, I'm here to talk about three very simple things. Firstly, I want to talk about the cost. I want to talk about the cleanup involved, and last but not least, I would like to talk about a public announcement. Now, having said that, I really want to thank, firstly, Astrospace. Thank you for your expertise in the project. The work we have done is extremely remarkable. And for SpaceGen, if not for your technology, we would have been in so much trouble with lunar songs. We understand that there were some hiccups, but like Mr. Mediator had mentioned, we look forward and we go forward. That said, to end off, I do want to say that I want to set the tone for today. We are here as collaborators. If it was up to me, we'll all be sitting at the same side. Because I don't see you as opposing parties, I see you as my teammates. And we are trying to appease the ISPA to show them that we are capable of being the pioneers of space venture. Now, let the past be the past. We don't blame, we look forward. I reassure you that myself and my very competent counsel, we are here in good faith, we are here with an open mind, and we just want to be happy, and everyone to be happy. Now, I've said a lot. With that, I'll pass my time on to my very competent counsel.
Thank you, Tegan. Good afternoon, Mr. Mediator, Laila, Roy, Poppy, and Amisha. I'm Leo, the legal counsel for the Auralis government. I'm here in an advisory capacity for Tegan here today. Thank you so much for joining us at this mediation table, because your presence here really inspires so much confidence in me for the session ahead. Thank you, Mediator, again for setting up the framework of today's mediation. I believe that it is many of the parties' first mediation session, and it was really helpful to know that you will be facilitating this discussion. To start things off, I would like to emphasize my client's position here. Auralis has been championing sustainable space exploration for many years, and has been working closely with the ISPA to set up guidelines and frameworks. Hence, this recent incident has been truly upsetting for us. However, at the mediation table, this is where we set aside any differences and work together, to come up with a solution. And while I have informed my client that should this mediation fail, we may proceed with the arbitration proceedings, we strongly believe that arbitration would be a waste of precious time and resources for all the parties involved. Hence, we hope to reach a mutually beneficial solution at the table today. Mr. Mediator, if you could help us note down these points. A successful mediation for Auralis will discuss the 3 C's. These are clarification, collaboration, and commitment. Under clarification, we would like to discuss the apportionment of the percentage of the fine that each party will be paying, which my client mentioned as cost. Secondly, under collaboration, we would like to talk about cleaning up the debris, how and other details with regards to this mitigation. And under commitment, we would like to reaffirm our shared commitment to sustainable space exploration and this 3-way partnership. And we would like all the parties to make a public announcement about this partnership and the measures that we are taking together for this sustainable space exploration. What Tegan and Auralis truly want here is to solve these issues as soon as possible so that we can continue our partnership. Beyond just a financial remedy, we want a structured, long-term solution so that this never happens again. We look forward to a productive session, and I'll pass the time back to the mediator.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you very much, Auralis, for the opening statement. Now, let's start with Space Jet. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Avisha Iman, and you can call me Avisha. First of all, I would like to thank Tegan and Lila for coming to the mediation session today. Working with Auralis and Astrospace, we are able to harness our advantages to propel our companies to greater heights. Tegan, Auralis is one of our most valued clients, and here we can harness our advanced satellite communication technologies to further a greater cause, the exploration of space. You mentioned that this is a second chance of giving the future generation a good life, and I find that truly inspiring. And Lila, Astrospace, our partnership holds significant strategic value, bridging the gap between commercial space sector and the private enterprise. I know the series of events have been unfortunate, but I'm here today to resolve our differences. We acknowledge that there was some faults in the storm prediction system which caused the lunar operations to be affected. Nevertheless, I want to emphasize that we are willing to be accountable and we take responsibility for the actions caused. Nevertheless, it's important to protect my relational interests in maintaining a credible space-based technology. But beyond the current issue, the long-term relational interest with both Auralis and Astrospace has to be considered too. As I've alluded to earlier, by working together, we can reach greater heights. And who is to say the sky is the limit? So as Mediator has said, we want to focus on future relations, and this is something that I truly empathize with. I hope that by tapping into your invaluable expertise in today's discussion, we'll be able to reach an amicable resolution. Now I'll be passing on the time to Poppy, who can give you a better understanding of the risk, losses, and agenda we have at hand. Thank you, Afisha. Thank you, Afisha. It's a pleasure to meet everyone today.
Just speak without the mic. Thank you, Abhisha. It's a pleasure to meet everyone today. My name is Poppy, and I'm the legal counsel for Space Gen. I would like to emphasize that I'm here solely in an advisory capacity, and I do not have any authority to make decisions on my client's behalf. My role is simply to advise Abhisha and keep a foot of the legality of the issues today. In particular, my client is aware of the fine imposed by ISPA against Oralis with respect to a space debris in violation of the ISPA Sustainable Space Agreement. You know, Afisha has earlier laid out the context and the impact of the issue at hand. At the heart of this matter is two R's, reputation and relation, two key interests that my client wishes to safeguard. With this in mind, my client and I have prepared an agenda that we believe will facilitate a constructive discussion today. And Leo, I appreciate the agenda that you have presented earlier. You know, it's encouraging to see that our agenda has multiple similarities and overlaps. And in this regard, I would like to add a few additional nuances to the agenda points. So our agenda is structured in three ways. First is to understand the issue at hand, and second is to discuss the payment to ISPA, where we will talk about the fine imposed by ISPA and also the Space Sustainability Fund. And the third agenda point will be the cleanup of the lunar winter, where we will be talking about the solutions as well as the cost involved. With that, I pass the time back to Mr. Mediator to wrap up our session.
Thank you very much, Space Gen. Now I would like to invite us to Space for the opening statement.
At this juncture, I think it's critical to thank the mediator, Mr. Gupta, for eloquently explaining the process of mediation. By the virtue of my position in the office, I have been part of a couple of mediation sessions, but nobody has put it as simply as you. And I'm deeply appreciative of all the work you do as a part of the international space and mediation and arbitration sector. Mr. Deegan, Avisha, it's always a pleasure. And the last time we met, I did not expect that we would be meeting at a mediation table the next night. But we do understand the surrounding circumstances, and rest assured, we are here completely on a good faith basis. Now, insofar as the problem is concerned, we understand what went down. It's devastating, but we need to make amends and we need to fixate responsibility. The company's vision is simple. We promote two things: accountability while also maintaining flexibility. So insofar as our interests today are concerned, we are on the same page with all the agendas that we have delineated. Thank you to respective councils. And to delineate my interests, I think my council is in a better position to lay out the agendas as the council have already.
Thank you, Neela. Greetings everyone. I am Mr. Roy Lasso, the legal counsel for Astrospace. Firstly, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to our esteemed mediator, Mr. Akash Gupta, for a cordial welcome and for so beautifully and succinctly explaining the process of mediation. I would like to thank Tegan and Leo for inviting us to this tripartite mediation session, and to Avisha and Poppy for agreeing to this session. I have had the privilege of serving as the legal counsel of Astrospace since its inception. I have worked with Leela not only as a legal advisor, but as a friend as well, and I truly cherish the professional relationship we have developed over the years. Now, to clarify my role today as a counsel, I would just like to state that I am not here to use any legal jargon, make any legal arguments, or make any submission. My role is merely advisory in nature. I am only here to check the legal soundness of the solutions that are proposed and to make sure that they are practically applicable and sound. Now, Neela has already elaborated upon the background of the dispute, and Tegan and Amisha have also eloquently elaborated upon the I would not like to use the word dispute, but issue. It is clear that none of the parties wanted this to come up, and we are here in good faith to resolve this. With that being said, I would like to lay down the agenda in clear points. Firstly, we would like to discuss the distribution of the financial responsibility in pursuance of the arbitral award. And secondly, we would like to discuss the plan for cleanup of debris resulting from the incident, which would also include the financial responsibility for the same.
Thank you very much, Astrospace, for the opening statement. Okay, so after the opening statement, now the next thing on our roadmap is to make sure that we have the fixed agenda so that we start a discussion on that. So there are 3 pointers which was said by Alice, that fine apportionment, which they call it cost, the second was cleanup, the third was public announcement. So I see that SpaceGen and Astrospace are having the similar ideas, that you want to talk about the fine apportionment first, second is the cleanup. So just to make sure that we understand what you mean by the public announcement, because both the parties are already agreeing with your first 2 pointers, what exactly that you are referring to with public announcement, and maybe I invite both the parties to talk about this. So let's do this quickly so that now we go to the main part of the discussion, which is the fine apportionment. Yes.
With regards to the public acknowledgement, we saw it as a way to show the space community that we are working hand in hand. There's been a problem, but we are finding a solution, and in order to find a solution, we are working together. I know we took a hit, our reputation took a huge hit due to what happened, and it's important to rectify the reputation, and I feel that this public acknowledgement will go a long way in rebuilding our reputation. That's all there is.
Thank you very much. So, are we in agreement with respect to the first one, which is the fine apportionment? The second one is the cleanup of the debris, and the third one is the respect to public announcement. I see that you have something to say. Okay, is it fine with you guys? Yes.
Perhaps I would like to clarify at this point that during my agenda setting, I did mention a separate point under the cost, which was to discuss about the Space Sustainability Fund. The core of this matter, of this issue, is regarding sustainability, and we do know that Borealis has recently had the Space Sustainability Fund, and my client would like to also discuss this issue in this discussion today. So perhaps would it be possible for us to sort of change the wording of agenda point 1 from apportionment to talk about funding or cost, such that we can discuss these 2 issues together.
Okay, perfect. So let's do it this way. The first one is the fine and the cost, including what she just said. The second one is the cleanup of the debris, and the third one is the public announcement.
Yes.
Okay. However, what I suggest that we do this instead of that, fine apportionment first, second is cleanup, third is sustainability fund, plus the public announcement. Does that work?
I think that perhaps just to echo SpaceGen's point, I think that the SSF Space Sustainability Fund is kind of interlinked with the apportionment of the fund. So we are amenable to discussing it together. Is that okay with Astrospace?
So let's follow what she proposed. So let's start with Borealis with respect to the first point of the agenda, which is fine and the cost.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Mediator. Thank you everyone for opening statements. I think safe to say that we all have very similar interests coming in here today, and it just echoes my sentiment that we are on the same team. So let me just once again set the tone that we're going to look forward, we're going to look ahead, and hopefully we come to a collaboration. With that, I do want to ask both Astrospace and SpaceJet a very simple question. So the question is, would you think it is fair for Borealis to bear the cost of the entire fine, given the investigation results? So maybe perhaps SpaceJet could answer first, followed by Astrospace. Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Keegan, for the question. And I don't think that Borealis should pay the fine. The fact that we came down to this mediation session today shows our commitment. And I believe we want to be accountable for the actions we have done. However, I must caveat this by saying that we only want to pay the sum based on the liability that we have caused or like the impact we have caused. I hope this answers your question.
It most definitely does. Thank you so much. I think Astrospace, you could answer that.
To answer your question, we absolutely feel that it's not completely fair on behalf of your body to pay the entire sum. But at the same time, we must understand, as reiterated earlier, reiterating what I said earlier, accountability has a lot to play in this regard. While we're going to be ascertaining responsibility, I believe the very first step for all three parties here should be to set up some sort of an investigation in order to determine where things went wrong, where can we solve these issues, and ensure that such problems never arise again. I think this should be the first step, and then we can maybe perhaps answer the question of who and whom should split, whom should pay whatever amount is decided upon by all three parties.
So perhaps to quickly summarize both, our points of view, Space Gen, your key interest is essentially fairness, right? You want to pay the amount that is proportional to the impact that was caused by your mistake. And for Astrospace, you also, to some extent, your interest is also in fairness. You want to make sure that people who are paying the fine, it is proportional to their fault per se, or how much of this harm they have caused. Perhaps at this juncture, I'd just like to maybe reiterate that the mindset that Aurelius really wanted to come here with today is, we don't really want to look at, use the word fault even. We want to consider the responsibilities. We want to look at the responsibilities of each party, what we were supposed to do, and instead of focusing on the past, we like to look forward. What do you think?
I think that's a very fair point. Thank you so much for raising that. I hear your point that you want to conduct an investigation before we talk about fine. But, Leela, I need to tell you something, and it's very important. If you all are not aware, there is a deadline for the fine, and it's a very, very pressing issue. An investigation would take far too long for us to actually come up with a conclusive result, and we will most likely not be able to meet that deadline, right? So I think what we should do is perhaps talk about the responsibilities with regard to the fine, because that is a very pressing issue, and if we do not pay this fine, it could lead to more heavy penalties, and I dare not say, but it could eventually lead to us not being able to venture into space anymore. So if I have each party's agreement, could we focus on the responsibilities of the fine first? Space Gen and Astrospace, please.
I'm sorry, if I can check it. I think we are going to the consequences, and the funny part that you have this deadline. So we are going to the consequences of what happens if there is no settlement, or if we have a settlement. Why don't we take a step back, and I invite you, because you are the one who's representing Aurelius, to talk about exactly what is that you want from this mediation session, what is your interest as a partner, and if you can propose something, then we can have a better discussion instead of talking about the fault theory, or if we talk about the deadlines, because these guys may be a bit pressured to think from that angle. So it's better to come a bit down and we talk about the interest here, and let's see if whatever you propose, if that is something of agreeable tones to them, and then this is something how we proceed to the next part. So let's take a step back, and why don't you tell us from your shoes, what's the problem, and what is that these guys can help you to make sure that all of you do not get to face this heat because of this fine deadline. Yeah.
First of all, thank you so much, Mr. Mediator. I think you really helped to streamline today's session with that, and I'll take this opportunity to really deep dive and really share what is going on. So, a problem has occurred, right? We are under a lot of blame from public, from the space community. So, for us, our main interest is to meet the regulatory body's decisions. And what is that? It's the fine. We have to pay the fine within a certain amount of time. And I think that's the most important and pressing issue for us today. That is, in essence, our biggest interest. Right? We want to collaborate, and this is why I need you, Astrospace. I need you, Space Gen, to collaborate with me and settle this fine issue before we can move on to other discussions. My counsel can also elaborate, maybe summarize what I've said.
Yes, so as mentioned by my client, this fine perhaps it is causing a lot of pressure for us, and we would like to work together, to solve this issue. At the end of the day, we all aim to be global leaders, to be pioneers in the space exploration industry, and therefore we think that perhaps maybe entirely saying that the fine is the most important was too pressurizing for both parties. We do agree. Perhaps we can put a pin in the discussion on the investigation for a later mediation date. And at the moment, given the pressing nature of the fine, would it be alright if we discuss how we can apportion the fine? So maybe, as Mr. Mediator said, we can suggest what we envision. So currently what we are envisioning is SpaceGen bearing 35% of the fine, Astrospace bearing 25% of the fine, and Oralis will be bearing the majority of it, which would be 40% of the fine. Is that amenable to SpaceGen and Astrospace?
May I continue this conversation? I'm very happy to work with you to talk about the fine, but I believe that when it comes to the apportionment of the fine, we need to go back and have some information gathering of what caused the things in the first place and the responsibilities, as you have mentioned, that lie. So I believe assigning a number without first talking about what has happened will not be the best way to go. And I echo Leela's words about how an investigation committee conducted promptly, of course, because I noted that you are scared that we cannot do this within the time limit, should be done instead. And I suggest that this investigation party should be conducted by independent party, and we should expedite this process in order to have a conclusion before you can address the ISPA's conclusion.
You talked about putting a pin on the aspect of investigation, but before we move forward with the numbers, what Leela had in mind, and we are, firstly I would just like to state, we're not trying to deflect our liability, but since you're a big country, you have the funds, we believe you have the capacity to pay the fine right now. We can have a proper investigation, and as President also agreed, we would be then willing to pay the amount of liability depending upon the investigation later. If that is something you could consider.
Yes, I mean this question. Thank you so much for acknowledging all the interested parties. However, in reference to the percentages that you have listed down for us, I see clarifications regarding the total quantifiable number given to you by the advocate tribunal. I understand that 25% or 35%, this is an equity margin. We are supposed to pay this much percentage, but what is the absolute quantifiable number that you have to pay as a fine, which would again guide us and help us understand how much we are actually going to come to?
Right. I hear both sides, okay, and I'll be very frank with both sides. Okay? See, I'm here discussing this because we want what? What is our interest? Our interest is space venturing. And we, at no cost, can we put this space venture idea, at risk. So, first of all, I understand you need an investigation to really see how much responsibility it is. It is only fair like that. And in an ideal world, that is what we would have done as well. However, given the paucity of time, things are really, really tight right now, and the possibility of having an investigation that really puts our entire venture at risk. And as Oralis, I'm not willing to take that risk. And I'm sure Astrospace, this venture means as much to you, and SpaceJet, this venture means as much to you as well. So could I please implore you to put a pin on this investigation, because it may very well put our entire venture at risk, and that is something we really, really want to avoid. Shreya, what do you think?
And I think also, maybe at this juncture, I do have a clarificatory question for Astrospace, because you did mention, you brought up our financial ability to pay the fine first. So I do also want to clarify, is your interest purely just for the fairness of apportionment of liability, or is there also some kind of financial constraint with respect to paying the fine? May I know something about that?
that to the first half of your question, there is no financial constraint on our side. But we would like to make it clear that we respect the joint venture just as much as you do, and we are invested just as much as you are. We are a firm that functions based on space communication, and it is of utmost importance to us that we maintain this relationship. However, as a corporate company, when we're trying to ascertain liability, we need to have specifics down. I understand there's a time constraint. I'm with you on that, President Lee. But insofar as our liability is concerned, you've given us a number of 25%. I do not understand what the total quantifiable number is. Okay, if you say 1 billion, I'll understand that I'm committing $250 million. I do not have that clarity. Secondly, again, thank you for understanding that investigation is of utmost importance. We do understand the paucity of time. The only reason we brought out the financial help to the country is that the logical understanding that the country has more resources than a corporate company ever could. So in light of these facts, we were of the opinion that if you can, for an interim time period, just pay the fine, and we can then go about the investigation, and whatever the ascertainment of liability comes out to be, we pay our dues according to that. That's something that we're proposing. However, we do understand if there are any budgetary constraints, we'll be completely open to support both Space Jam and audience.
Perhaps if I may add at this juncture, the Joint Investigation Committee is not just a committee that is to find liability or fault. You know, this investigation committee is also one step forward for us to actually find out the root cause of the problem and to figure out how to resolve this problem such that such issues will not resurface again in the future. Without such joint investigation committee, these issues may be able to resurface again in the future, and it is something that all of us would not want. Am I right?
I think maybe just to quickly summarize, I think that both parties, and including Aurelis, all three parties, we really do not want this to repeat again. And we believe that, a thorough investigation definitely should be carried out so that we can ascertain the cause, ascertain what the causes, not the cause. However, at this juncture, I just feel that maybe we should take a step back because I realize that the conversation is leaning more towards determining liability, which implies that you want to find out who essentially messed up what, and therefore pay according to that. But I think that perhaps what we would like to suggest is apportionment according to responsibility, which is responsibilities as provided for in the contracts that are between SpaceGen and Aurelis and Astrospace. So, for example, in Annex A, Clause 4.1 of our sublease, it is mentioned that Astrospace is in charge of maintaining the equipment, and it was also mentioned by the ISMAC that it was the failure to secure the equipment that could have contributed to the debris being released, and it was also as SpaceGen acknowledged that there did lie a fault in your storm prediction technology, and therefore we weren't able to foresee the storm and perhaps secure the equipment better. So given that we do have some information at this moment, instead of relying on the future, on information that we can gather from the future, would it be possible, would the parties be amenable to discussing the apportionment of the fine based on the responsibilities that we are aware of presently?
So you understand from your side that what you are essentially suggesting to us is that you are not disinclined to the idea of a joint investigation. You are just looking to discuss the matter of the payment first before we move on to talk about the joint investigation. If that is correct, I believe that my client has something to say regarding this.
In this regard, I realize that I'm quite concerned about having an investigation in order to find the root cause of the problems, but I do note that you have repeatedly mentioned you want to pay the money to ISPA because it's quite urgent. So in this regard, may I throw out an option first? Here, we are willing to talk about settle on an in-principle agreement of the percentages of liability subject to negotiation with an investigation. And should the investigation says that have been conducted says that there's different responsibilities that lie, then we will settle the amounts with another contract. So in this way, we can settle two issues. We'll have an investigation, but we also note that you have to pay the money, so we settle on the percentages that you have to be paid. And if the investigation shows different results, then we will settle the differences in the percentages with another session and another contract.
Perhaps, if I may, this also ties into the idea that we have talked about earlier about fairness. If we expressly follow what is in the wording of the contract itself, we are not looking into sort of the root cause of the problem, but essentially just looking at whatever we have contracted for before this incident even happened. And this is why my client has suggested this option. Would that be amenable for both parties?
Yeah, thank you so much. Space Jam. I understand.
Sorry, but can we give the floor
Oh,
to Astro
sure.
so that
Yeah.
we reply to this and then we try to,
Yeah, most definitely. Go ahead, Astro Space.
Thank you, Akash. So Leo, you mentioned about the fact that we should put a pin on the investigation and that why we are concerned about the percentages right now. So the reason we're pushing for investigation is that we're not able to understand the rationale behind the percentages that you've divided, although we appreciate that you're ready to take up the major portion of the responsibility. Now, the reasons you stated that there was a failure on part of us to get the equipment, I think all the reasons that you have in mind, all the parties have different interpretations of those reasons. For example, the fact that there was a failure on Astrospace part to procure equipment was in our, as per our understanding, was because SpaceGen did not provide us with accurate information. Not pointing fingers at all, but just stating that there are different reasons for all the three parties present here. So for us, we are not really able to understand what's the rationale behind 25% and 35%. So that's why we want to proceed with an investigation first so that the results are the same for everyone. Right now we are at different pages as respect to the liability.
I'm so sorry, before I give the floor to you. So I see that Astrospace and SpaceGen have a priority that you want to have the independent investigation, and for Orioles, they want to do the payment first. What you guys have proposed is that you are ready to discuss the payment terms subject to the investigation committee report. So, do you guys agree to their proposal that are you also ready for the payment discussion for now? But of course, it's going to be subject to the investigation committee report.
Just
so, are you guys in line?
Clarify once. In principle, we agree upon the percentages,
Yes.
and upon investigation,
Yes. So basically they are saying that the payment terms which we decide now is going to be subject to the investigation report.
Certainly, we can discuss in principle upon the percentages, but we are not ready for the 25% proposed right now.
We will get into the percentage part at a later point of time. So I see that both of them are in consensus here for us. So what is your stand with this? Because you want payment absolutely without talking about the investigation. So they propose that it's subject to investigation report. So now the ball is in your court. Why don't you clarify your position here, that how we go ahead from here? Then we'll have a discussion on the numbers.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Astrospace. Thank you, Space Jam, for the options, for the suggestions. I think they're very helpful. We did make progress since we now have somewhat an in-principle agreement. I do want to reality test this idea a bit more. So what I'm hearing is we go ahead with the fine first, we settle the legal regulatory matters, and then we move into investigation for future mediation sessions. Is that what I'm hearing?
That is correct, but the numbers are subject to discussion.
Right, sure. Okay. I think I do want to add a little bit more nuance to this investigation. So from our side, we are concerned with public reputation, and I'm sure you will be too. So if you don't mind, what are you open to the idea of adding a non-disclosure act into the investigation report? Yeah.
I think I'm amenable to this non-disclosure agreement. And I want to add that this investigation should be done in an independent manner by an independent party. So I would like to ask Keegan and Leela if they are amenable to this as well.
We seek a copy of clarification
Sure.
the council reposing of
Yes.
Just to clarify, you mentioned the NDA within the investigation report. I think we are in principle able to that, but what would you exactly want the non-disclosure for?
Yeah, so,
Understand.
yeah. We want the NDA basically just to ensure that whatever's being investigated stays amongst us. You know, our reputation is at stake, and we do not want our reputation to be under the mud, because we are the pioneer of space innovation. Sure. You know, Leo, what do you think about this?
I think primarily all three companies, this NDA is to protect us essentially together, because at the end of the day, whatever this investigation reveals, I'm sure that we all have reputational concerns. And I think as a country especially, we have to deal with not just like corporations but other countries as well. And therefore I think this NDA is extremely important to us as well in that sense. And therefore we are agreeable to a joint investigation carried out by a third party at a later date, of course, and as provided that we will all be signing an NDA, and the investigation results will not be disclosed to the public, but rather just determine whatever like apportionment between us. And is that clear? Are you amenable?
I think that's really great. We were also concerned about the public reputation, and the legal team was just discussing about the ways we could do that. I think an NDA would be.
Yeah, thank you so much. Mr. Mediator, maybe at this juncture we could just note it down that we have finally, overcome that very first hurdle, and thank you so much for your cooperation. If you don't mind, perhaps we can move into the talking about the fine now. Is that okay with everyone?
Certainly.
Yeah, so with regards to the fine, we understand that maybe the total amount you don't know. So how can you commit yourself to an amount you don't know? Yeah, that's normal. But here's the thing, we also are not aware of the total amount at this current juncture. But Mr. Mediator, maybe you could note down in a homework corner. Once we know of this figure, we will be transparent with them and we will let them know. But for the time being, due to this pressing issue, can we just talk about the percentages for the time being so that we can make headway on this pressing issue after all?
Yes, I think that talking about the percentages is very important, and I would like to clarify that us settling on a percentage will have to be with the investigation report. Okay, in the interest of time, I would like to understand from your side, Stephen, why you have proposed these numbers. And on my side, I can be very honest and upfront with you. Currently, I'm only willing to prepared to cover 20% of the total fine amount. I think this is considering the impact that we have caused, and it's only a small part of the whole entire lunar debris that have caused.
Space Jen, I hear your question, I hear your concern, right? So these numbers are preliminary numbers based on preliminary investigations. Every party has a part to play in what happened. We are all responsible in our own ways. That is why we came up with these numbers. That's how we substantiated it. Similarly for aerospace, I'm sure you have the same question. Now, I do think it's important to let you know that these numbers are negotiable. As you know, there is an SSF, the Sustainability Fund, and if you are willing to input some funds into this SSF, we will be willing to negotiate the percentage. How does this sound to you? And do you think this would be a good idea for them?
I think that so just to quickly summarize what was presented by my client, we do understand that this number, this apportionment that we have presented, it might not be amenable to everyone. And I understand that Space Gen, we are only willing to shoulder 20% of the fine. And the option that we have for you is, in the case that you would like to perhaps shoulder a lesser or greater amount of fine, perhaps you could let us know what is your preferred apportionment, what you think all three parties should be paying. And in the event that you guys do end up reducing the fine, I mean, if you want to increase the amount of the fine that you're paying, we are happy. But given that you are more likely to be decreasing the proportion, we would also like to ask SpaceGen and Astrospace if you would like to make some financial contributions to SSF. So specifically what we'll be asking for would be SpaceGen to contribute $235 million and Astrospace to contribute $260 million. So the apportionment we are presenting is SpaceGen 35% and Astrospace 25% as well.
Certainly. Before we respond to that, what would be the reduction in liability in case we accept the 260 million contribution to the SSF fund?
So I think it's negotiable because you need to understand that it's 100% and there's 3 parties involved. So we're not negotiating between us and you, we're negotiating 3 of us. So maybe if we could just list how flexible you are, I think that would be more helpful. So we can, maybe I could come in the middle of this and hopefully meet you and our interests. Yep.
Thank you, Lina. I was quite open to talking about the SSF because I need to mention that when we are paying the fine to the ISPA, we are actually helping the ISPA fund the additional internal causes. And the same company, which is ISPA, is the one that is is under the auspices of ISPA. So the SSF and actually the fine are both contributing to the integrity of the global space network, and this is something that we are very on board with. And as for specifics of the percentages that we are willing to pay, I do note that you mentioned $235 million, am I right, Neil? I think currently we are not able to accept this, but perhaps I want to have a better understanding of why you throw this number out. Maybe perhaps you can give me a better understanding of how this money will be used.
So, this fund, right, Mr. Mediator, I do want to have your input on this. This SSF was actually advocated by us. As you know, we are a pioneer in the space industry. So we feel that for smaller companies like Astrospace, SpaceGen, it's important to have this fund to support them. So Mr. Mediator, I think it's very important for you to be on board with this idea of SSF. So maybe before I can answer SpaceGen, do you think that it would be a good idea to, go on board with SSF and have them contribute?
I think it's a good idea to talk about the SS fund, sustainability fund at this juncture. However, I think there are other ways to also look at it instead of looking at purely like a cash investment. There can be some other sort of investment, for example, tech investment or technology transfer or something on those lines. So maybe if you are not very much into the proposal of Oralis with respect to like 235 million USD or something. So maybe some other way, maybe you can contribute so that your total percentage with respect to the fund apportionment can be reduced. So I think it's a good idea, we can talk about it. But just before we proceed, because SpaceGen got the opportunity to talk about the percentage as well as the sustainability fund, I think we should give the floor to Astrospace so that they can also put forth their views with respect to the percentage and what they think about the sustainability. Please.
Thank you, Mediator. First of all, we are highly appreciative of what Oralis has done with the Sustainable Space Sustainability Fund, also known as SSF. Now, insofar as the investment is concerned, we are open to investing heavily into the SSF. However, we must understand that there is a variety of investments that we can offer. It's not purely monetary investments that we can make, although that is something we are immune to. However, we think that our innovation and our expertise is something that we can profit off of more. So, insofar as our investment is considered, I request you to not see it presently as a purely quantifiable investment that we will be making. If it could be a mix-up, because again, we do understand we have corporate social responsibility that we take seriously, and sustainability is one of the driving factors for our company. And we would not want to repeat what happened with the ravages the earth is in right now. So I would request you to consider, like the mediator also emphasized, on some non-monetary form of investment, which could include, and is not limited to, I must add, technical advancements, R&D support, could be patents, could be proprietorship, ownership. Rest, my counsel is also will expand upon this.
Firstly, Tegan and Leo, it's great that we are coming up with the same solutions. We had exactly this thing in mind before coming, that instead of along with the financial responsibility, we could contribute to the SSF fund, which is a major thing which Aurelis has developed. So, as Leela already stated, there are two aspects in which we can contribute to the SSF fund. One is the monetary, and one, as the Mr. Akash also stated, is non-monetary. So we were thinking we are open to contributing a certain number, but as Avisha and Poppy also pointed out, we would like to first understand why you want us to contribute this specific number of $265 million to this fund. And with regard to non-monetary contributions, Leela has already elaborated, but we are ready to contribute things like technological collaborations, research partnerships, and other initiatives like IPs and patents. Now coming to the percentage which you proposed of 25%, we're really happy that the number that we had in mind is very close to what you have proposed. So our limit for the financial responsibility right now is 24%.
Okay, I think right now I need to just take a step back and really hear what each party said. So for SpaceJet, just to double confirm for you is you're very on board with the SSF, and for Astrospace, you're also on board with this idea, and you would also like to contribute not just monetarily, but also with expertise. Is that clear? Right? Okay. I understand your interest. Your interest is important to you, and you are important to us. So Leo, let's work something out for them so we can, meet their interests.
I think that definitely we do hear you. Perhaps I have a few clarification questions, and also just one point of clarification. I am so heartened by the suggestion for both Mediator and also Astrospace to contribute non-monetary items such as your technical prowess, your expertise. However, I think that we should remember that the SSF is ultimately a fund, and therefore, while we really appreciate the non-monetary incentives that can be provided, perhaps this isn't the best area to place them. But I think that perhaps if we can understand maybe the apportionment of the fund that you can contribute to, and the amount of money, the bottom line that you can contribute to SSF, I think that we can definitely find a place for the technology and R&D when we're cleaning up the debris, and perhaps we can, since even though it is our next agenda point, and I do want to, discuss this in entirety before we move on to it, I believe that they are all interlinked, and therefore perhaps can be discussed in conjunction. What do you think?
Yeah, I do think so. I think these points are all interlinked, and we could definitely work a solution out with regards to the cleanup. So, Mr. Mediator, at this point, if the parties are amenable, we could put a slight pin into this, SSF fund and talk about the cleanup. And as it's all interlinked, so it will affect each other. So what do you think?
I feel like maybe we can spend more time to hammer down what we are willing to pay on each side before we move on to the cleanup of the space waste. Because all of these concerns, monetary expenses, and our our wallet is not without limits. So no matter what, we cannot shy away from talking about monetary compensation. So I just wanted to see whether Mia and Tegan will be amenable to still talk about what are we willing to offer at this junction if, for the SSF and the percentage of the...
So, Abhisha, what I'm hearing is you still want to talk about the SSF first before we move on with the conversation. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay, we're okay with that. I think we will respect that. What do you think?
I think, for us space exploration firms, even though the sky is not the limit, our pocket is a limit. So I definitely understand where you guys are coming from, and we would love to hear your bottom lines. What is the maximum that you are able to pay, perhaps? Astrospace, would you like to go first?
At this juncture, I feel that this session has been purely seen from a myopic lens. We must understand there are three parties here. I would request you to please kindly take note of this fact, and henceforth this session, we can equally accommodate all the parties for each issue. Now, insofar as the investment is concerned, we are completely agreeable to the amount you quoted us. However, again, we understood that the SSF is a sustainability fund, and we just thought that our technology, again, being industry leaders in sustainability, would have aided the fund in more ways than money ever could. However, I understand that's not a preference for this fund. So we are willing to accommodate 265 million, that's not an issue. However, insofar as again, like you said, the interlinked fine is concerned, then if we are going to be substantiating the fund with a heavy investment, we expect some sort of relief when it comes to the percentage that you decided. Again, I understand that's a separate issue altogether. However, I want to keep that with you right now. And once we are discussing the other issue, penalty, that's when these considerations probably could impact the discourse.
Yeah, Leela, I think that's fantastic.
Sorry,
Very interesting.
so do you guys want to first finalize the fine and assess fund, or do you want to pause it for some time, go to the cleanup part, and then later on you want to come back?
Maybe if I could just provide
Yes,
clarity for the things that we stated right now.
Yes.
The issue of SSF funding
Is interlinked.
and the liability that we will want to incur when it comes to the fine that the arbitral award has asked Honest to pay are deeply interlinked. So it's really difficult to talk about one thing and then ignore the other. That's our submission insofar as the agendas are concerned. Now, again, we understand we first must discuss this and then move on to the separate issue of space debate election altogether. But we love to hear what other parties.
So you are saying that let's wrap this discussion of the fine apportionment and the SS fund.
Yes.
Once this is wrapped up, then we move to the next agenda. I think I agree with what you are saying, because now we are discussing a lot of things. If we come to consensus, very good, or otherwise we park it. But it's your call when you want to park it. So if you want to still go ahead with this and you want to discuss it, so that's his idea.
Still like to go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Mediator, maybe at this point, I think I can echo your sentiment, Abhisha and Leela, that we want to talk about SSF and fine, and then we move on to the cost.
So I mean, consensus that let's talk about this and then we move to the lending. Okay, okay.
Yeah, I'm very sorry, Station. I know you want to say something, but can I just clarify with that? So, with regards to the 260 million, we do have an in-principle agreement that you'll be contributing to SSF. With regards to the fine, as of now you are at 24%, but we will negotiate that further. But maybe at this juncture we let Space Chat share what they have. I'm sure you're very excited.
Yeah, before I talk about my offer that I can put on the table, can I clarify to them your expectations? So you initially mentioned that you expected Space Jam to pay 35% of the total fine amount, am I right? And then you also expected us to pay $235 million for the SSF, am I right?
In the sense that if you are willing to pay $235 million for the SSF, perhaps we can negotiate a lower percentage of the fund. But yes, it is 35% at $235 million.
Okay, currently I need to be very honest with you. I really like the saying about maybe the sky is not the limit, but our pockets are a limit. So in this regard, I have several high investment projects which require significant capital allocation, and I need to bring your interest. I need to refer to my opening statement where I said that financial interest is also something that I must safeguard for my own company. So in this regard, I'm willing to settle for 220 million to the SSF and 20% of the total fine amount. I would like to see if that's amenable to use or release.
Right, so the numbers that are being thrown out right now is 220 million as well as 20%. I have to be honest as well, our pockets, we make donation, but not, our pockets still have its own limits, and we are answerable to our citizens. We can't be funding everything into just space innovation. So as of now, these numbers are not doable, but I do want to clarify and really understand, is this the bottom line? Do you have any wiggle room where we can work something out?
I'm sorry, can you clarify what is that you want exactly the numbers from Space Jam? Because they say 220 million,
yes,
with 20%.
Right.
What is that you are proposing?
I believe my counsel has said earlier, the numbers will be 235 million to the SSF, and for the fine, it will be 35%. Yeah, but of course, we will negotiate this number. But before that, maybe we want to understand the financials.
Okay.
What's your
Before I give the floor to you guys, can we also talk about the percentage? Because you are ready to pay 260 million to the SS fund. So let's park this for something. Let's hear what about their percentage, and then you can have a discussion more on finalizing whether we are reaching a consensus or not.
I believe that Astrospace mentioned 24%, but you would like
I'm so
it
sorry.
to be.
If we give the floor for them.
No, and then can I ask them a question? If that's okay.
I'm sorry, but let's hear them first. What is their proposal? Like we had Space talking about their proposal, and then we will get an opportunity to come back and ask the questions. If I may ask.
Yes. Just to provide clarity on why we are insisting on reducing our liability, and we also understand that different stakeholders involved. For your convenience, Mr. Mediator, I'd like to point out a couple of considerations when it comes to understanding how much equity the fine everyone's going to pay. Insofar as the data set which was used by the satellite was concerned, it is first transmitted to Aurelis. These data sets are used to predict whether there's going to be a lunar storm or not, which is very important for us who are at ground level of South Pole of the Moon, where we are taking out deep resource extraction missions, and we have an on-ground infrastructure build-up. Now, we understand that we are the secondary party when it comes to receiving these data relays. And we understand, okay, these data relays cannot depict the accurate information, because of which we could not predict that there was going to be a lunar storm, and subsequently we suffered from infrastructural damage. Now, again, as an industry practice, we also understand that on-ground reality is much different from this. There has to be some accountability on our part. However, when it comes to 24% of the load, that is something, 25% as a number was stated, right? Correction, is not amenable to us. We expect if we are going to make such a significant contribution as has been logged, 265 million.
So you agree for 265 million?
To the SSF fund. Yes, we
You agree.
But we would want to negotiate, and if we could give a counter offer, my counsel is what we have called.
Yes, take it off with percentage.
Certainly. So when we say, what we are saying when we say that we have agreed upon the $260 million contribution to the SSF fund, it is contingent upon the percentage of liability. When I mentioned 24%, that is our upper limit. But considering that we are ready to make $265 million worth of contribution, it is a substantial number. And the reason we stated that we are in principle agreed to pay that, ready to pay that amount is just to say that we don't have any financial constraints as of now as a company. But when we come to the percentage of fine, if we are contributing $265 million, we would be willing to contribute only 20% of the financial liability.
Thank you very much, Astrospace. Just to confirm for all of us here in the room, 265 million is agreeable, and you propose 24% with respect to the fine portion.
That's the
highest.
Yes, of course. Okay, and for you guys, you said 235 million with 220 million with 20%. Now, sorry, you had some
just a clarification, with $265 million, our last offer for the financial contribution would be 20%.
So now you are saying it's 20%.
I think perhaps at this juncture, I would also like a clarification, because I believe the number 260 and 265 for both.
Yes, I also had the same concept,
Yeah.
because you said 260, then you said 260, then 265. So why don't you confirm once? It's 265, yes?
Right.
Okay. And with the percentage, it's 20% or 24%?
The higher limit stays 24, but
Okay.
if,
So it's a bracket of 20 to 22, if I understand you correctly.
yes.
Okay, so now we have two offers from both the parties. Now why don't, sorry, you had a question and also a concern. So please go ahead.
Well, I think my question was actually the same question that you had asked, and you had read my mind, but thank you so much for the clarification.
Now you have the offer, so why don't you help us?
So maybe I'll Space Trade, I'm really sorry, but since they have given a more concrete offer, I'll have to attend to that first. But we'll definitely come to you after this. So Astrospace, we understand your lower limit is 20%, and I have to be honest with you, we are very highly inclined to accept that offer. But maybe before we can accept it, we just want to ask, where did you get this 20% from? And how do you go from 24 to 20%? Once you can answer that, I think we can better understand where you're coming from.
you guys will take it. So insofar as the percentage that you suggested was concerned, it was 25% of the time. Now, as I was explaining to the mediator earlier, it is of utmost importance to realize this fact that the information that was received from predictive analysis of these rural moon stocks first goes to Olympus, the other secondary party to receive this. So insofar as our liability is concerned, we don't think 25% was a fair number. Now, again, we understand and we want to continue with this venture. We believe in the power of collaboration. So we are going to accommodate you, but since we are going to be investing such a huge amount into the SSF, which you have lobbied for, we want some sort of a concession. As a diplomat, you must understand, you get some, you take some, and that's exactly what we're doing for.
I hear you and I understand. So with regards to that, I think we don't have to delve any deeper. We accept your offer, but SpaceGen, I don't have to tell you that if they're paying a lower percentage, it does mean that we might have to take on a higher percentage. But let's negotiate, and I assure you that just like how we've given them goodwill, we've met their interests, we will likewise meet your interests as well.
So just to go ahead with this discussion, you agreed to their offer of 265 million and 20%.
Sure.
Okay, sorry, please sir.
So I note that since you offered, you agreed to the 20% by Astrospace, currently we have 80% of the liability that still remains up for discussion. Okay, in this regard, I'm willing to up my offer to 220 million for the SSF and 25% for the financial contributions to the imposed fine.
I'm so sorry, but previously you said 220 million as well, so...
I think I'm upping my percentage regarding the
Right.
financial contribution.
Alright, so Leo, what do you have to say? I think we've made significant progress. Maybe share your input.
Yeah, I think at this juncture again, I'm just so happy to see all the headway that we have made. We are getting closer and closer to an agreement. Perhaps at this juncture, I just would like to understand where exactly are you maybe like getting this number from? You know, just as how Astrospace explained to us why it was like a range between 20 to 24%. May I understand why it's a 25% of the fine and a 220 million as opposed to what we had proposed, which was 35% and 235 million?
Well, I think we still have to go back to the root cause of the issue, which is what responsibility and what impact that we had caused. And in this regard, SpaceGen has been doing its part and conducting, the surface reader installed by SpaceGen and all the routine maintenance and periodic systems. So in our opinion, the impact that we have caused warrants this 25% that you have just mentioned. In addition, I'm afraid that I'm unable to spend more for the SSF because I've mentioned already that my financial interest means that I am unable to commit to such a high amount. But I'd like to understand from your perspective as well. So perhaps you can give me a better understanding of why are you asking for 35% instead?
I believe that at the end of the day, as you mentioned, it does boil down to what we believe caused the issue, and perhaps our understanding of the issue was slightly different. Perhaps at this juncture, Tegan, what do you think of their proposal? I believe that they have increased it, from 20% to 25%. I think my personal opinion, as purely just a legal counsel, is that 220 million is still a bit too little for us to reduce their contribution to the fine so much, especially given how willing Astrospace has been to give us 265 million for the SSF. What do you think, Tegan?
Yeah, I think I understand. First of all, I really sympathize with you. Financial constraints, pockets are not limitless. So maybe I could counter-propose something to you, and I hope this suits better. Maybe the 220 million, we stick to it for now, Mr. Mediator. But with regards to the percentage, you're offering 25. Could we instead say you pay 30% and we'll shoulder 50% in total? Right? What does that sound to you? And I do want to add one more thing. Since we are giving a bit of leeway to the SSF fund, you're paying 220, maybe when it comes to cost of cleanup, that's where you could come in and do a more proactive role so you can offset this amount? How does that sound?
Perhaps before my client takes this point, I think she has repeatedly mentioned, that she would like to understand from your perspective how you came into this number. And so I think arbitrary numbers have been thrown out, 35%. Now you're asking us to sort of like increase our number from 25% to 30%. So similarly, similar to how you have asked us to justify these numbers, could you perhaps justify your number as well before my client gives her input as to this issue?
In addition, I do have one more point to make. So we are saying that you want to propose 30% for us, and for the astro space you propose 20%. So it's very difficult for me to understand. So do you think that we should have higher responsibility than the counterparty in this regard? Perhaps you can let me better understand what's going on.
Perhaps I can just process this question a bit before my client answers. I think fundamentally the difference here is that you believe that you should be paying lesser because you did not cause as much of the damage, which I think also inherently implies that you believe the other parties might have caused a bit more of the damage. Is that what you're saying?
Perhaps if I may clarify at this juncture, correct me if I'm wrong, the number for astro space is 20%, is that correct? Okay, and the number that my client is suggesting is 25%. So at this juncture, I would like to have one point of clarification. Perhaps could you help me understand what you mean when you say my client is sort of like saying that the other party is more at fault when their percentage is actually lower than our percentage?
I'm sorry to chip in here, but here we are getting to this that you guys have to compare which one was more at fault or something. Instead of that, I think let's go back a bit further. What Poppy asked you guys that how do you actually come up with this number? Let's address that instead of getting into who was at more fault, what is their percentage, because Astro Space has already agreed at least with the final apportionment and the SS fund.
Yes.
So I think it's already agreeable terms. So why don't you quickly tell us, for the benefit of all of us, that how do you actually assert this number which she asked? So you have to add something.
You're completely in alignment with what you have stated to the parties. However, I just had an alternate solution to this diffuse this issue.
If you guys please.
Yeah, we're more than willing to listen. Please go ahead, Lila.
Since this particular issue has been, this situation needs to be diffused, I think what would be helpful is to discuss the space debate program, maybe have some new ideas in mind, discuss new ideas, collaborative efforts. That could maybe strike a collaborative spirit between all
I
of
think
us.
they can actually refer to this.
Yeah, we did. However, I think they wanted to clarify a bit more.
So let's do this way. That why don't you quickly answer them with respect to their clarification on the percentage? How do you actually come to that? And then we take this discussion forward.
Yeah. Before everything, I do hear the word fault being thrown around a lot, guys. I want to emphasize we're not here to talk about fault. We're talking about interest based. How about from now on, we take it as I'm allergic to the word fault, and if I hear it, I will have a breakdown. I think that way we can have a conducive conversation. Okay, Leo, take it away.
Thank you so much for your question, Space Jen. I believe just to make sure all the parties remember, the question was where exactly are we getting these numbers from? Firstly, they are not arbitrary. I believe that one of the first things that we had discussed is how exactly can we apportion the fine, and I had mentioned that it is in line with the responsibilities, the delineation of the responsibilities. And perhaps, Tegan, do you want to shed more light on how exactly that works?
Yeah, so you're saying that since you have to pay slightly more than them, you're more responsible. Then look at us. We're willing to pay 50%. Are you trying to say we are at fault? No, we're not saying that at all, right? So, oh no, I say fault. But yeah, having said that, it's so we're not playing that game, right? We're not playing the game. This number is not arbitrary. This number is based on preliminary investigations. So I hope that clarifies the situation, and I'm going to pose the question back to you because time is of the essence here, and Astrospace wants to move on with the conversation. So once again, how does 30% sound to you?
Before I answer your question, I would like to apologize for using the words that you're allergic to. I will try not to do that in the future. And I'm so sorry for extra space that we have compared with you. You know, I mentioned in my OS that we still have a partnership that's very valuable with us, and I hope that you know that I appreciate it. And so in this regard, I think I'll be able to accept 200 and $20 million for 30% of the financial contribution. I thank you for your consideration, my financial interest and the limitations that I currently have, so it's priced at $220 million. And in exchange, I'm willing to put out 30%. Will it be amenable to you?
Could I also maybe clarify that this 220 million for SSF and 30% of the fine? And I understand, the financial constraints. So later on during the discussion on the cleanup, will you also be amenable to not just talking about, the financial aspect, like how much money you can fork out, but also technology that you can provide us with?
Most definitely. I noted that Lila has been repeatedly mentioning about this technology, and I believe we have the expertise, given that we are a pioneering satellite manufacturing company. So I will be most open to it. So I would like to see for the proposal of this, will it be amenable?
Yes, we most definitely are. I think it's mediator at this point. Let's just structure this. We have an agreement with Aerospace established, and now we also have an in-principle agreement with SpaceGen. Just the details is they'll pay 30% with regards to the fine and $220 million to the SSF. But of course, they're willing to give the expertise and all the technology they have to the cleanup. And maybe now we can move forward to the cleanup, Mr. Mediator. How does that sound?
So I see that we have almost like 10 minutes left. So this is what I propose, that we have already covered the independent investigation, we have an agreement, we have talked about the fine and the assessment. So let's spend like 4 minutes and let's see if we can reach somewhere with respect to the cleanup. If not, we'll park that for the upcoming mediation session. But let's try to do this if we have some discussion.
Yes, most definitely, Mr. Mediator. I think Leo, you could really hit start this conversation about cleanup. Let's do it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mediator, for also, eliminating the time as such. We really, that was really helpful. I think, the cleanup of the debris is definitely a major concern for us. And, given how committed we are all to sustainability, this is a very important issue. And to show, a sign of goodwill to the public and also to ISPA, we have to clean up the debris. And so when Aurelius, came out with an estimate, the cost of the cleanup operations was 500 million USD. And at this juncture, given how much we are shouldering for the fine, we are willing to contribute 100 million towards this effort. And we will definitely increase it if there are any other appropriate incentives that either party has. Any creative solutions are welcome. I know that Aerospace and SpaceGen are really excited to talk about it. Perhaps Aerospace, would you? Oh, sure, SpaceGen.
Well, thank you, Lila, for giving me the floor to talk about an innovative idea that I had. Given that we are a satellite manufacturing company, our expertise lies in the skies. And in this way, a proposal that I will give is that using our satellites in the sky and our networks, we are able to exactly pinpoint where the debris are located. Instead of using our satellites for those orbital encroachment, we can use our satellites to detect where the debris are located so that we have a more efficient time in spending the manpower and resources to clear up these debris. I believe it will save time, save money, and most importantly, it's an innovative solution that I hope both of you will be on board with.
If I may just chip in, Amisha, that's an excellent way of looking at things, and I thoroughly compliment on you for this. As far as the amount that we've seeded the technical team back in Astro Space has also stated a similar amount. And insofar as the solution is concerned, we are completely on the same page with you when it comes to your satellite network, being one of the best in the world. But if we will also chip in, because we are, of course, crusaders for sustainability, our technical team back home has developed a state-of-the-art magnetic repulsion system which can be installed to pre-existing satellites. The only thing is that you have to orbitally de-escalate it, but that's something that we can discuss later when both the technical departments may perhaps get together. What this would do is essentially, if your satellite is near the space debris, using that magnetic force and the hardening sheets that we use over the debris and space-related products. So that magnet will attract the debris and attach it to a disposable frame which is attached to the satellite. Now this is something which is still in development and not the appropriate authority to comment on it. It's something that the technical experts will explain better, but if you're alright with this idea, we'd like to subsequently, after this session, probably discuss this, maybe fix a time where both the departments can be, and always I'd love to see it run into.
Right, okay. I think two very, very fantastic ideas have been thrown out. So, just to summarize it for everyone's benefit, SpaceJet, you want to give us your satellites because they're the best in the world and they'll be able to detect where the contamination is that right? And for aerospace, you have this magnetic resonance force, which the details you don't have yet, but of course, we'll talk about it in future mediation. I think what I'm seeing here is two options that can work hand in hand. It doesn't have to be, I choose yours and I don't choose yours. No, we can choose both. We work together because at the end of the day, remember, we are a joint venture collaboration. So I am heartened to hear that, Mr. Mediator. I think we can take down both these points.
Yes.
Now, Leo, from our side, how can we help that?
I think that definitely the two ideas working in conjunction, the idea really excites me. I really look forward to, this project. However, I am a legal person and I do have some questions about this. Because I understand that while we did project some costs and while Aerospace did admit that the cost that they estimated is similar, no monetary value was really thrown out. So I have two questions at this juncture. Will you be contributing anything financially apart from the technology? And if not, or regardless of your answer to the first question, the second question would be how would your technology really decrease the projected cost of the cleanup? Do you have any monetary value attached to it?
Maybe SpaceJet could go first and Aerospace could go
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but let's be a bit quick with this. If we don't reach an agreement with this, then it's fine. We can park it. So I see that we almost have 6 minutes. Let's give them the flow, but just be quick so that all of you get to understand what things we agreed and what things are parked for the next session.
Thank you, Leo, for your questions. And in this regard, I'll definitely be willing to chip in a bit. I'm willing to pay $150 million for the cleanup operation. As to your second question about how much money can my idea will use, I believe this is something that I do need to talk with Lila about because they are using their technology with our satellites. So this is a thing that we have to bring back to our technical experts to discuss about. I hope this answers your question.
Yes. Come on, Aerospace. What do you have for us?
So we were thinking that we are ready to provide with $150 million of the cleanup cost. And the project that we have in mind would definitely be reducing the cost, although we do not have the numbers right now because it's not complete right now. The technical team back home has made the projection that 50 million would be the minimum amount that it would reduce and it would go beyond that. So right now the contribution from our side would be 150 million.
If I can just chip in what my answer just said, there's a clarity that is needed. Since we are making an investment pertaining to the satellite, and this will effectively bring down the cost, we would want you to slightly just increase the amount we are investing. Rest assured, we are both pioneers, leaders in our industries. We work day and night to make this happen, but we need some sort of monetary assistance from you. So if you could reconsider your offer.
Okay, definitely. I think really this collaborative spirit, is amazing here. And perhaps just to quickly summarize everything that has been thrown out, SpaceGen, we are willing to offer us satellites, which will be working together with the magnetic technology from Aerospace. Together with that, SpaceGen will be throwing out 150 million. Aerospace is also willing to contribute 150 million. We're at 300 million. And you're also saying that your magnetic technology can reduce the estimated cost by 50 million, which brings the total cost to 450 million. And that means that we have to contribute 150 million as well. What do you think, Keegan?
Well, I do think that these options are amazing, and what you're asking is to fork out a bit of money. And I want to be very transparent here. I'm very happy today with how things have gone. SpaceJet, Aerospace, today we collaborated very well, and just out of goodwill, so that in future mediation sessions we can have more camaraderie, I will be willing to bear the cost that is remaining, and this will in turn result for 150 million contribution from our side as well. So Mr. Mediator, maybe I could just clear it up for you. So in terms of money, the total cost was 500 million,
Yes.
but according to Aerospace, it will be now 450 million. So we're looking at 450 million, of which Aerospace is giving 150 million, SpaceJet is giving 150 million, that's 300 million, and we will be chipping in 150 million simply because we want to get this done. We want to show ISPA that we're working on this together, we're going to fix the problem, and moving forward, we will not let this happen again, and we will continue to be a strong force in the pioneer of space innovation. How does that sound to each party?
So we are running out of time, so let's try to conclude this quickly. So we started with our discussion and our difference of opinion with respect to agenda setting itself, but now we see that we have so many agreements. Starting first with the independent investigation, and the report will be having an NDA attached to it, so all of you agree. The second is with respect to the fine and the SS fund, where he talked about Aerospace for 265 million USD with 20% of fine, SpaceGen 220 million and 30% of the fine. And the last discussion we had with respect to cleanup, you have already summed up the numbers. So we have concluded like this thing. And let's say if there are certain things, for example, independent investigation report subject to the payment, we can of course conclude another mediation session. And I see that Aurelius has already given the closing statement. So I'll give you the floor, but 1 minute each because we are running out of time. Let's try to follow that. So let's start with Aerospace first and then 1 minute for space.
Spoken very true, Mr. Deegan.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Abhisha, Mr. Gupta, Ms. Poppy, Ms. Leo. Thank you so much for coming here. I'd also like to thank my counsel, Roy, who spent with me for 20 years. It's truly beautiful to see what we've achieved here today. And Roy, do you have anything to say?
Just that I think it was a very fruitful discussion. We, as Akash also stated, we were not agreeing on the agenda in the starting, and now we have agreements on so many things. I think Aurelius and Sirijan were both very accommodative of our demands.
Let me keep things short. It was wonderful to meet you, and let this not mark the end, but the beginning where we reach for the stars. Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you very much. And with this, we conclude this session. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the participants and to the mediator. This was a very insightful session. We really enjoyed spectating it. Before we move on towards the facilitation of the awards, we would like to hear some feedback from our judges. Right, so if the judges have any questions for the participants with regards to the round, the strategy, or any method that they have chosen, they can go ahead and ask them.
Thank you so much. Just want to ask you each of the teams can just share with us what was your goals and objectives coming in this session. So what was on your mind before?
Yeah, maybe I can take that question if you don't mind. Yeah. So coming into this session, first of all, it's a tripartite mediations, not like any other. So we came in knowing that we had to handle two sides. So what we had in mind was be sincere. This dispute that we had, I didn't see it as a dispute. I saw it as a tiny bump between our collaboration. So I came in here with the idea that I'm going to be sincere with the parties. I'm going to let the parties know that we're here together because we are not each other's oppositions. It's ISPA that we have to satisfy. And that is the main goal we have, collaborate. And I think that went really well for us because despite a small hurdle, we still managed to come to consensus on many things. Yes, I agree. Towards the initial part, we had a bit of back and forth with the investigation. But of course, it boils down to their interest, and their interest is important to me, which is when I decided to come in and just say, yes, we will meet your interest, provided we meet our interest, we put a pin in this conversation, we move forward with it because there are other pressing issues. So I think after that hurdle, things went a lot smoother, and the sincerity really worked well for us. And that's why we managed to come to this conclusion.
Counsel, I really wanted to protect my client's interests and make sure that it was being represented throughout. And I think that it was quite hard to mediate with three parties because we had to juggle all their different interests, and sometimes even though one party might be agreeable, the other party might not be agreeable. And while it took us maybe some time at the beginning to get used to that, I think that as soon as we found our pace in that and we got comfortable with it, it was smooth sailing, and the parties were also extremely collaborative and receptive to what we were presenting. And I think that at the end we managed to make great headway on most of the agenda points that we had presented, and I'm sure that we would have also agreed on the public announcement if we had maybe another 5 minutes. So I think overall we met our goal of presenting a collaborative front against ISPA.
Thank you. As a negotiator, there's a delicate balance that we have to strike between assertiveness and responsiveness. And our goal today is to be responsive by saying that in my opening statement, I'm willing to be accountable, I'm willing to take responsibility of the acts that have occurred. At the same time, I was willing to be assertive by saying that there are some bottom lines that I would wish to push, which is the investigation. However, I do note that there was some reluctance regarding this due to the time constraints, and so I tried to option generate in order to meet everyone's interest in the table today. So I drew an option to talk about the investigation along with an in-principle agreement on the amounts that we have to pay.
I believe that during the start of the session itself, it started a little bit fast because it went to the apportionment of the numbers itself. So what we did in this instance was we took a step back and we tried to understand how the issues exactly surmised, what exactly caused these issues. And after understanding this issue, we understood that the interests of both Astrospace and SpaceGen aligned, which was that we wanted to have a joint investigation. And this joint investigation is important because for us as a company, as an industry, we want to make sure that, as you mentioned, it is a small bump, but a small bump can recur again in the future. And to prevent this recurrence, we really need to pinpoint the exact sources of what has happened. And so our plan moving forward to this is not just to focus on the past, the present issues, but also to focus on what the future will entail and how we can manage whatever is going to happen in the future. And I do note that my plan did throw a lot of creative options which was on the table today.
Your Excellencies, I have a model answer and I have a investigation strategy answer. Insofar as our strategy is concerned, it was an understanding that our company that this particular venture is of utmost importance to us. Owing to the fact that we are involved with Orelis, this has bolstered our image in the international community. So as a part of we have a confidential information that sets the tone for what we're supposed to achieve throughout the course of the round. Insofar as our confidential information was concerned, the most important thing was that this mediation session goes well. And we wanted to avoid reputational harm. And also when it comes to our commitment to the SSF, there was a set number given to us, which is 270 million. And insofar as the delivery collection is also concerned, we were also given a number for 250 million that we contribute. So these are the questions pertaining to the nego strategy that we followed. If I could give you a model answer,
we were here to effectively ensure that every party gets the chance to speak and represent their issues. So if there's one thing we could have probably done differently, as I think about the afterthought of the mediation, that was maybe include all three parties equally at all times, which is something which is difficult in a tripartite mediation session. And this is something that all parties were struggling with, to acknowledge that there are four different parties sitting here, including mediation. But yes, that's
So our main interest, according to me, was we wanted to preserve our relationship with Aurelius, and as we also stated that we wanted this mediation session to go well. Our confidential information provided us with certain limits for the numbers for the sustainability fund, for the percentage of liability, and we tried to stick to them. With regards to the investigation, I think that was something that was important for us, so we pushed for that in the beginning only, even though it took up a lot of time. But I think we were able to meet our interests, and most of the numbers that were laid down were very close to each other, so we feel it was easier to negotiate.
My question to SpaceGen and Astro. Do you think the strategy that you came with worked? And are you satisfied, or you would have liked to do something different?
Perhaps since our strategy in this round, as we mentioned, there was two. One was to ensure the past, present, and the future, and we did manage to have this joint investigative committee, and that's what we wanted to get. And I think in that respect, it worked successfully. But I think in the second respect, which is that we did mention in our opening statement, our two interests is two, which is reputation and relation. But I think perhaps there was a little bit of a deadlock in some instances, in which we could have facilitated in a better way, which would enable the session to go a lot smoother.
Yes, so sorry to answer you. I think there was one mistake where I talked about fault and fault finding. And well, in my confidential, I was told that I expect Astrospace to assume responsibility for 30%, while we want to cover to 25%. So this amount of we expected that Astrospace will give a higher percentage than SpaceGen. This was something that we did not do in the end, but I might not have phrased it in the best way. So moving forward, I would have tried to keep a more cordial tone and not use such heavy-handed words like fault in the future.
So regarding the strategy, I think we got everything we wanted mostly. I would have been more clearer upon the percentage aspects. I think there was some confusion with 20% and 24%. The reason our higher limit was 24%, but since we were contributing a very large amount to the SSF fund as compared to SpaceGen, so we thought we could explore the possibility of pushing the percentage of liability a little lower, which they agreed to. So yeah, I think our interest in that will be there.
In the second part, would you have done something different?
To address that part of the question, so again, insofar as the negotiation strategy is concerned, apart from the clarity that we could not give between 20 and 24%, there is not much that we would have done differently, because our quantity limited us to, after once we've gotten what we wanted, we just had to ensure that both the parties are also effectively mediating. So insofar that is concerned, we could have taken a more active role while both of them were negotiating back and forth. We did try to do it by asking the mediator to diffuse the situation. However, again, we must understand that when two parties are going back and forth, they're really emotional about it, and it's really hard to then ask them to, okay, we want you to now digress from the negotiations, let's talk about something else, we'll come back to this. So that is not something we would have done differently, maybe we would have phrased it differently and tried to get the parties to move on and not put fingers.
A question for Aurelius. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
You were found responsible for the liability of the fine. You then said, however, that SpaceGen and Astrospace had some contribution to the incident. But how do you define the parameters of your own liability? I know you're quite excited and sort of reading about saying that yes, we're giving 50% of the fantastic, excellent, blah, blah, blah. But, if I also read the undertone to that, it perhaps leads me to believe that you have possibly, take into account an internal study or something that perhaps finds your liability higher, and I am therefore trying to regard of, oh wow, we're giving 50%, which is really heavy. You're attempting to sort of circumvent the rest of your action liability in an investigation that may come up. So while you're talking about SpaceGem and Astrospace, how do you determine the parameters of your own liability, whether it be 50%, 40, 60? What is the basis that shows that?
Okay, I understand your question. So, well, for us, in our confi as well, the numbers given to us were as such, like 25% for them, 35% for them. And we were not given any information as to where those numbers came from. Yeah. So, in the general information, I'm sure you're aware, we weren't told as to what the parameters were. But having said that, in the very initial part of the general info, there is an email which highlights there's negligence from their part, our part. So naturally, the responsibility of the 100% fine should be shared. And there are contractual clauses that are in the general info. So what it showed was we are not actually involved in what's going on. We only lease the land on the moon. They are the ones working on the moon itself. So technically, we don't have anything to do with it, to do with what went wrong. So the reason why we have
just on that, sorry, you said because you're simply leasing the land.
Yes.
Could you have potentially keep aside the factoring rates?
Sure.
I just want to understand your thought process.
Yeah.
What potential contractual safeguards could or others put in place?
Right.
To possibly obviate where we are today. Anything you could suggest to think about?
Yes, most definitely. So, safeguards, right, the question. So, the main person leasing from us was, if I'm not wrong, Astrospace. So, between our contract, we had a clause that could say, look, if anything were to go wrong in the moon, then they will indemnify us because we are answerable to ISPA. And since we are paying the ISPA due to something that happened on their part, they will indemnify us. It's a clause like that.
Perhaps as a legal counsel, in this that I can just tweak my client's answer a bit. It is true, that was our strategy coming in. We did want to share liability, and we felt that perhaps the contract had adequately protected us, especially in 7.2 of the sublease agreement to Astrospace, which said that we shall not be held liable for claims that were incurred by the lessee due to unforeseen lunar conditions, and one of them is the lunar storm. And I think that it was something that we wanted to bring up if they were to harp on fault and liability, if they really wanted a fault-based discussion. But since that was something that we moved on from, we didn't really bring it up even though we were aware of it. I think that how we wanted to protect ourselves, because perhaps if I may reveal some of our CI information, there was fault on our part as well, but it was something that we didn't want the public to know. And that is why we were extremely against the investigation at the start. But we realized that if we didn't give in a little bit, the conversation will not move on at all. And that's why we included the NDA with the investigation, because our main aim in that was that the public should not know, because we want our country to protect its reputation. And we did mention that we want to protect all our reputational interests, but that was our key interest. So I would say that the safeguard was the NDA, and I feel that the existing contracts, while may not be 100% super efficient for us, we felt that it was adequately protective, and we didn't feel the need to bring it up in this present negotiation.
Thank you. And for SpaceGem, it's your prediction technology that failed at the end of the day, right? Should this be considered as negligence on the part of what your technology promised it would provide, or a force majeure situation? Because for it to be the latter, you would need to showcase how a lunar storm is something you could not even possibly foresee, even with other hypothetical conjecture. So what's your answer to this? Your thought process?
I think from if I may uncover what is in the happened is that during the last routine maintenance check, there was a technical anomaly where the surface heater was observed to intermittently power off for a few seconds before automatically restarting. However, we also noted that there was some sort of, because our system was an autonomous system, we did routine maintenance and periodic system checks. So in this regard, although it may be possible for us to say that there was negligence on our part, we believe that from the CI itself, it showed that we did our due diligence to routine maintenance and periodic system checks, and that this lapse that happened was actually something that was not, this lapse that happened was not something that was expected, or not something that would ordinarily happen if it had been in the ordinary situation. And therefore, we believe that there will not be any negligence on our part in this instance.
And I would like to add that we said that this data set that we use primarily sourced from O'Reilly's, while Astrospace received a backup copy to cross-verify the accuracy and integrity of the data we are responsible for. So actually, without having some information gathering, we will not think that this is negligence, because we are sourcing the data from another company, which is O'Reilly's, and we are also having the second line of cross-quality checks with Astrospace. So this is not something that can totally be said to be negligence on our part, if there's any mistake that might happen.
Okay, one final question for Astrospace. Does your CI talk about, in fact, it is your job to protect the equipment, and that protection in terms of the equipment going off fails. Have you adopted any industry standards to ensure that equipment was secure as per industry standards? And assuming that, and keep aside for a moment, I want the two of you individually to tell me, assuming the CI is silent on that, logically, would you say Astrospace would be negligent in not following industry standards? First one, based on what's in your CI. Second, assuming the CI is silent on that.
So our CI mentions that we did not fully comply with the standard procedure requirements which were required. But so it then again states that it may have exaggerated the extent of infrastructural damage. And so we believe that some sort of negligence could have been there for which we were ready to take up the liability. However, we could not have taken the greater part of the fault for the situation that happened. So because the equipment that we procured was based on the information that we got from SpaceJet. There was a lapse in the first instance on their part. So this lapse in protocol may have exaggerated the situation, but that situation would have happened.
Assuming they gave incorrect or inaccurate information, have you followed industry protocols and standards? Isn't that standard in place to obviate such a potential lapse in input? So assuming you had followed industry standards for securing the equipment, even if that information input that came in was not entirely accurate, wouldn't you having followed that protected you from that?
So there would have been, as I said, some negligence. For that, I think the 24% liability which was given in our CI was enough. But again, we would not have taken up the major part of the responsibility, because the first point of liability would have been on SpaceJet, because we relied on that information. And the CI also very vaguely mentions that it may have exaggerated the extent of infrastructural damage and increased the volume of debris generated, which we interpreted that the incident would have taken nonetheless our protocols were followed or not.
To answer your question, insofar as our quality is concerned, it was silent on the matter pertaining to whether we could have avoided such a circumstance or not. So there were multiple layers to this problem. First was the prevalence of a lunar storm. Now the agreement here is that we are the ones who are going to be extracting resources from the surface of the moon. SpaceJet, now moon surface has a problem of these lunar storms that come in. which are potentially going to destroy infrastructure if it is not locked down properly. The information that we get is coming through SpaceGen's satellite. However, we are the second people in the position of hierarchy who get this particular information, even though we are the ones who are working on the lunar surface. So if we got that information wrong, there is nothing that we could have done to foresee that such a storm would arise, and that is exactly the point of concern which was here. Also, already talked about there being unforeseen lunar conditions. Our strategy in that particular case, if they did invoke the indemnity clause, would have been that these circumstances are simply not unforeseeable. We have spaced into this particular contract for simply that reason, that you tell us a lunar storm is coming in, we adequately secure all the infrastructure on ground, and in the case of a lunar storm, so there is always a probability of some of the infrastructure being destroyed. However, the extent to which it was destroyed is something which we could have minimized, and henceforth we wanted to emphasize on the fact that it is not indeed unforeseen. It could have been foreseen given the data that we received was appropriate and correct.
So then one very quick question based on that. What contractual safeguard would you potentially insert in your future contracts to obviate this? Then we know more. Very good.
So it's not
So we would have had a clause for indemnity specifically between SpaceGen and Astrospace, since both of the we especially relied on SpaceGen for the information they provided. So if this indemnity clause would have been there, then this question of who would bear the liability would not arise, since we are expecting and relying completely on the information from SpaceGen. So even though we had a contract with Oralis for the sublease, we did not have a clear contract with SpaceGen.
One question for the mediator. See, when we talk of management of the negotiation process is controlled by the mediator. Outcome is in the hands of the parties, right? Then, once the agenda is set, too much of time is taken on one aspect of the agenda. Should the mediator not have moved the parties forward using partner as one of the, methods? That in part, there was stuck on one aspect. I think 45 minutes were taken on the first aspect. Could the mediator have not controlled the process?
Yeah, I was actually thinking what you just said, because I was trying to do this, but then by the time I realized it was already 40 minutes plus. So if I have to tell one thing which I would have done better was stop them a bit before 40 itself, so that we would have spent more time with the other issues. So I was actually thinking in my mind that, yeah, I should have done that.
Thank you.
So sorry, are there any more questions? Alright, then I think we can proceed to the scoring. So for that, I would like to escort the judges to another room so that you can discuss and score accordingly. The participants and the spectators can be seated here.
Alright, so I request everyone, participants, may I have your attention? Yeah, so we request you all to reassemble at 6:05. Here. Yeah. Meanwhile, others can go have high tea and snacks.
Competitions, I hate them because I don't want to judge. But sometimes you are forced to. But let me tell you, all of you are winners, because I yet to see exceptional performance. You know that all of you do. And therefore take heart, because they say when two ride horses, one has to be behind.
So that winning and losing is not important. The fact that you've come this far, the fact that you started, gathered momentum, and added value to whatever you know will not. That for me is winning. So all of you perform exceptionally. So can we have a round of applause? For you. See, sometimes we are exceptionally good in what we do. No, but when I do mediation trainings in communication, I say like, if the words and body language is to be believed, believe the body language. There you can't fake. Words you can. So something which you need to ponder on, later on you will deal with that situation. Yes. And brilliant performance. I mean, you gel it well. And therefore that goes a long way. And for you, really was that it's good to concede space. Because mediation is about conceding space. Right? Because collaboration. Not let the others also do. But being too laid back sometimes can also harm your interest. Because when you're negotiating, you're also looking at your interest, besides the interest of the other side. It must meet your interests too. Right? And that's all I have to say for the moment. Thank you. And let's get it.
Can you hear me? Look, I echo what JP said, and I don't know if you were noticing, I was paying a lot of attention to everyone's body language, because in mediation that plays a massive role. And a lot of what you're saying is not only looking along with talking and looking at your body language, your facial expressions. In fact, if you want to be good mediators or mediation advocates, it's important to understand and study allied fields such as for instance, neuro-linguistic programming. What your facial expressions say. Now, I'll give you individual feedbacks, but I hope you take it in the right light. Also study micro-expressions. You know, your little twitches in the eyelids, where you're placing your hand on your face, how you're putting your hands on the table. I was paying attention to all of it. What you do is below the table with your feet. I was paying attention to all of that. It tells me a lot about what your brain is actually thinking. When you're trying to BS, when you know or not know something, where your eyelids are, where your eyes are pointing to the left to the right side of your, when you're talking to me, that tells me a lot. When you don't know what you're saying, when you know you're huffing, when you're not, it's saying a lot, right? Pay attention to that. And what also helps in when you're preparing yourself for a mediation competition in the future, negotiation, plan counseling, or even if you do an arbitration move, understand a lot about social cultural anthropology, body language. When I'm sitting as an arbitrator in Rwanda, when I'm sitting on Russia, etc., or even as a mediator in different jurisdictions, what I tend to do is I watch YouTube videos, or if there's a program on Netflix or some channel, in that local language where I don't understand a single word of what they're saying, I switch up the captions and try to figure out what they're doing. Because you understand that body language. You learn things about different cultures, different jurisdictions. It helps you appreciate what's being said, what's also not being said when someone says something. Right? And that's very important. Okay, it was very close. It took us a while to discuss. Okay, because the marks were very close. Okay, so each of you, when you don't take it as an experience where you're driving the ball. No one's perfect. There's no right and wrong. It's a process to learn. Right? Today, people say, you know what, I'm going to protect my child and always make sure they're retaining needs on so they never fall off. Sometimes the best thing you can do for a child is let them fall off the bicycle so that they learn how to pick themselves up. So whatever feedback we give you, please don't think, oh my god, this man is nasty. I see him the next time, I'm not going to talk to him, I'm doing all blah blah blah. Take it in the right spirit, because that's the intent with which we are sharing it, because we want to see you succeed. All of you have such exponential potential. You loved it. We were like, wow, it's fantastic. I wish we could do these things when we were doing our moving class. It was just a traditional meeting program. Hats off to the organizers and the drafting team and everyone's put the marks and everything together very well for our time. Now some feedback, okay? So brace yourselves. There's good and there's room to improve. I won't say that. Okay? And let's start sort of move clockwise. I'm going to call you by your name this week, yeah? Okay, so Poppy and Anisha and all of that. The teamwork right off the bat is fantastic. Okay? And the main part of the teamwork that I really enjoyed seeing was when you connect with each other, you read your body language very well, you're maintaining eye contact with the mediator with the other parties without and still sharing your notes. Poppy was saying something and she gives her half to the end home, class, that, and you maintain, you're looking at the left of your eyes, still maintaining some semblance of eye contact with the person. So never break eye contact with the mediator and the opposite parties. It's very important. Okay? I'm going to give, I don't want to overlap, you sort of discuss what we're going to talk about, and what I would love to say as well. There should be engaged with the mediator. Okay? The mediator is not a silent engage. Maintain eye contact with parties, make them engage, and I think in the comment you mentioned that there's live. Give me a quote on that. Okay. Just make sure you appreciate the audience in the room, right? Two sets of individuals, yourselves, or this astrospace and the mediator. Sometimes I felt we were only talking to them, and they were the middle child who no one's interested in. So please don't do that. They also add value. So look at it, because in a real world situation, what this will have done is, let's say, mediation, that will pick them up and then walk away from the table. Okay? Simple things. In terms of when the mediator said, address a certain way, sometimes you didn't. If you don't engage with the mediator, you let control sometimes move away from the mediator to someone else. Because you're addressing, for instance, you're addressing a party or a set of parties, the lawyers, you're sort of ceding to control to another person. That's always the power dynamics in the mediation. Okay? We liked your out of the box partial generations. It's not very well done. Okay? And Alicia, I liked how your relatives, you could have improved upon it. Sometimes your facial expression were a little too poker face. You need to see something. It's a subtle smile. Not completely exposed. Okay? And Poppy, don't bite your lips as much as you do. Okay? Study and telling what when you read about it and see what it means in ways. Showcase a little more confidence in your body language. Sometimes your shoulders slouch. Like maybe you're doing right now, straight in the back. Your mind is failing. And okay, I'm sure everyone can tell you. That shows the feeling of confidence. And when people can make some points of each other, it seems more like an elocution competition. Surely. There's a difference between emoting clearly and making a point and being eloquent. Don't do the latter. Be fair. See the distinction between. So Sophie is a bit more firm, direct, clear of what she's saying. This fabric form. The option generations, Alicia, fantastic. Which is why the two we made a great team. Because the one person was perhaps not doing what they want to do, the other person was making work. Because the teamwork, I love it. Okay, the way you're nudging each other, you sort of understood each other very well. And you very rarely broke eye contact with everyone. So that's very good. There's some other feedback from the other things I know for that. Oral is right in front of us, okay. Two very different individuals in front of us. Okay? Both of you speak very well and carry yourself really well. I'm not calling you Leo. This is not Leo. Leo, I like how you were measured and weighted right from when you were suddenly smiling and nodding your head. Tegan, speak well. Clearly a very sharp guy. But a little too much extra.
And the best way I can explain it, okay? It's like Leo is, you know, someone in the whole family would wave like this. Yours is more like this. A little too much. I kept looking at your legs. I don't know why you're shaking your legs so much. All that very distracted. Be more conscious of your body language, Tegan. Probably Tegan, I know it's not your name, so that doesn't strange, but the part that was difficult to digest, if you can very clearly see, it's smart, you know what you're talking about. But sometimes, in terms of teamwork, you're looking down, the other person addressing you, you're looking down, you're losing eye contact, you're losing, you say, oh, you don't care what you're talking about. Forget about it, you're focused on what you're talking about. That is one of the things that eye contact. I remember once when in a situation where Poppy was looking up, Alicia was looking up, right? That's teamwork. You have, and sometimes I think we forgot. You're playing a little party representative, trying to party themselves, not doing it. And I'm very curious, because this is a question all of you ask, what role did you play in the previous round?
I was 5 on.
You must have all the way, because you kept playing in your, for some reason, you give us a very strong impression that you're trying to supersede the role of the mediator. Because there's just too much of that, oh no, I think you do this stuff. Then you just look at the mediator and say, hey, you agree with me, right? Don't do that. Okay. After that, this body language was such a stark contrast, because if it was just a little less extra, okay, fantastic. It's just such a stark contrast. Okay. You both clearly know what you're doing. But the biggest thing was my face is, I don't think you realize that someone making an interesting point, which is sometimes in fact in your favor, it's someone was showing a negative emotion. It means you're not self-conscious and you're not introspective on what you're feeling and emoting. You're thinking one thing, the emotion is getting something else. For instance, a very close mind may show a sense of disdain or everything, everything is you look at. That's like the way you're shaking was driving me insane in my head. Because I kept looking at it. Finally, towards the end, the initial 25 minutes, it was just too much more going on with the video. And I thought, it's just too much. Then put down, I very glad to see the next one. But there's too much of that going on. Not your synergy, the two of you, the synergy, your opening statement, facts, the situation, really well done. Okay, clearly showed your thought about it, your bifurcation of roles in that sense. The rest of the teamwork was needs of work. The opening statement was really nicely done. Okay? At some point, both of you, perhaps even you a little more, felt like you were giving a lecture. Yeah, it's just giving a lecture. Like, all of that can be seen as condescending. For many people, like if you did some of those things in real mediation, I know people have lost users before that said or about that. They don't just be very conscious. What was interesting to me is I could see the things you wanted to say, but in the excitement of saying it, you forgot to say it in a measured manner, and when you say it without control, you're losing the effect of what you're seeking to convey. Which is once or twice when I saw you was sort of nudging me to say, just relax a little bit, temper your tone. Yes, and then we'll probably do a few more comments as well on that. Just generally, just you're a smart guy, right? This was really bothering me seeing that it was a little too much. Just temper it. Okay? And it's very instinctive if you don't finish it. So for me, for instance, when I was first starting off my first day, I used to jump when I knew something. And then I realized that the judge used to give me feedback. Okay, it's the one that just the excitement when you know something really well, you tend to want to bring it up. Clear path. Sometimes it's not about showcasing that you're going to do your things. Where to showcase what? That's the power of the learning. And then finally, their attention completely, and that's going to antagonize them in a real world situation. Two could be very nice if that was happening, that would annoy the heck out of me. I was a party going to get two really smart and measure that this is a competition, etc. It would be very nice if that was clean in my head. So if this was a real world creation, the council, the parties would have flashed out at you completely, not to tell you that. Better you gain control with which you get receive control. Be a little more proactive, right? If you feel you're not being heard, I'm not asking to be aggressive. Say, well, you perhaps retake what you said. Could you perhaps not consider it another action? Give me a moment to think about what do you think? You may not have an answer ready. You may think, well, I don't know what to say. This doesn't involve me, especially in a competition context. Involve yourself in that. Give yourself those few seconds. Don't sit there and prepare yourself. What happened? 15 minutes have gone by. I'm not hearing a single thing from you. The showcase is okay. Then I think you have to take charge. You're going to accept what's coming out. And then towards the end, there's some good option generation, there's some good ideas. You're engaging the mediator really well. That was not towards the end, right? Giving away too much of your time. You see too much control. Okay, to the truth there. Simple thing. All you have to do is, it's very important in all this is did you do this? And then not your partner, but start trying to say something without BSing that. Okay? So it's just give them the time, buy them the time. If while you're talking, you forget to change from this bottle of water, drink the water. Awful voice, I'm sure you must be tired of hearing me, blah blah blah. Take a sip of water. Control things. Let them do their things in charge. Especially all of us. They will completely taking charge. If you're saying something, even if you're doing it, if you're not saying something, ask me.
So in this particular case, it's a tripartite agreement. The main problem that we facing for was we got what we wanted from all the issues. There is effectively nothing we could do to, okay, if both of them are talking, or if there's an isolated act of focus, for example, the first instance was isolated act between us while we were discussing a space and discussion. Then there was an isolation where they were discussing and we were not reading.
So after we discussed the moment we finished, what do we do? So if I've understood all this, maybe just if you could indulge us for a moment, if I've understood, I'd just like to summarize it the way all this was made clear. They kept reframing. I've understood you guys. I've understood you. That's what you could have done. Right? The two of you did that really well. You kept reframing really well, you kept summarizing, when something is unclear. So for instance, Stephen, you did that really well. Reframing it, summarizing, well. I can see that happening there. He said something? Okay. Don't, just not his really good job or something. I get what you mean. Even if you're summarizing, have I understood this correctly? You see, if you engage, right? If you don't engage, what do we assess you? Just that. And again, if you have any questions for us after you hear us, or give feedback, feel free to. I thought we first will give feedback. And then if you have any questions when you are specifically or generally, feel free to ask. And over to you.
So, first of all, congratulations. Everybody, all teams, you did wonderful. I want to congratulate everybody that took place and participated in the competition. Even if you're in finals, even if you're not, I think you need to be brave to compete at this competition. So, as you said, we agree. What is most important is the skills that you learn here during the competition. It doesn't matter if you're a final or not. So, I want to really congratulate everybody. This was a very, very unique session. I participated as a coach, as a judge, as a mediator in a lot of competitions all over the world. This is the first time that I see this with three sides. This is very complex, not taken for granted, and you took it on. You did this, you interacted. It's very complicated, even in the real world, not only in competition. So I want to congratulate everybody. This was really a challenge, and And this is not so easy for us also to market. So maybe just want to give a small feedback of each of the things, and then we say a few words. So Space Jam, I'm not going to repeat echo what you said. I really liked your sky is the limit, but our pocket is not the limit. And really liked your initiative in creating creative solutions and offers all the time on the table. This was very meaningful, and I don't know if you know this broke the deadlock that you had for a long time. Are we going for the prices? Are we going to the investigation? What are we going to do first? And in the minute that you brought, let's do the payment contingent with the investigation, I think everything just moved on and relaxed, and you could move on. So see, I think it was a very important lesson for all of us, how a creative solution, you don't stop offering and think creatively. Offer again and again and again and again until something is taken and you can continue. So you did this very, very rightly and took it step by step. Also with your offers, you advanced really, really slowly, but very, very, we can see you negotiating. Very, very smart. So Oralis, I really, really loved your opening statement. I really liked the clarification, collaboration, commitment, and you explained each of these headlines in your opening statement and setting your agenda and what's important for you. This was very nice. And you all the time spoke about what is your interest and what is important for you, and trying to see what is going on there, what is going on there, and see how you can find something that you can live with and that answer your interests. I like you spoke, let's not talk about fault, let's talk about responsibility and sharing and the teamwork. This is very, very good for mediation and negotiation. We are a team, we are not one against the other. This was very, very important to set the atmosphere. Okay, so now astrospace. So I very much enjoyed with you asking very good questions during the mediation session. All the time you want to understand, how did you gather this number? Why is it 25 or 35? Where are you getting all this from? I think this is very, very good for mediation to try and understand. If I agree to something, I want to know why I agree. So you did a very good job asking open questions. Not all the time you got the answers that you wanted, but you asked the questions. So this is very good. And I want to urge you, if you are feeling that you haven't got the answers, keep on asking. Maybe try to phrase a different question. In the end, you got the answer. Really, I think maybe 15 minutes. In the end, you said we did some preliminary investigation and we reached the numbers. You didn't have that in your confidential, but you have to have something for it. So if you eager and asking questions and don't get an answer, just keep asking. Okay.
I agree with all the panel members what they have already said, so I'll try to give you some of my 2 cents from this term. First of all, it was a pleasure mediating this lunch with a very talented pool of students. I think when we talk about mediation, we need to go back to the basics, which I think all of them tried to cover it already, that it's a collaborative process. It's not an adversarial process. So at some point of time, it's always better to give each other flow. So some of you were trying to do it within your team. I think it's also a good idea if you do it with the other team also. So for example, I see that you only say something. What do you think about this? You guys do it within the team. So for example, let's say I'm the client, he's my counsel, I say, you think it suits my interest? That is something which was the first step, which all of you were doing it. But let's say if you are the respondent, I say that, oh, I see that you have a concern, why don't you tell me that what's your 2 cents on this? So I give you the floor. Now these are the things which actually, what I do it as collegiate instead of collaborative, because this is the collegiality which you showcase to the other team. And when you do these things, it's very small thing, but when you go to the knockouts like this, it's a final, as the panel members already said, it's a very close fight. These things actually, attract the attention. So when you go to ICC Paris or CDIC Vienna, these things will matter a lot. So maybe you guys can, think who was doing it and how do you actually improve this. I think teamwork is something which was already good. So from the teamwork, I think you have to move towards, something called collegiality also, with respect to the other team, the mediator, to everyone who is a stakeholder in this mediation session, because you have been marked on separate criteria. And I think this is something which Anisha already covered about the role play that you need to understand. I'll give you a very relatable cricket example. Understand this, if you are an opening batsman in cricket, you can't think of coming to the first ball of, let's say, a 50-over match and start hitting sixes on the first ball. Maybe Viren Sehwag can do it, but not everyone has to do that. So you have to understand what's your role. So some of you, for example, I think you already talked about David. So she was doing client role throughout the competition. And sometimes it's also very problematic because at the end of the day, you guys are law students. I understand that you already have an inherent issue because you are a law student, so sometimes you think that you are role playing for the client, but sometimes you don't look like a client. So how do you actually do this? So this is what we used to do in Westwood from Stockholm University. So our coach Professor Patricia used to tell us that why don't you start recording yourself and you do a peer learning. So let's say if we are all in the same group, so we do this peer practice round with you guys and we record all of this. Sometimes I think that I am very, collegiate to you, but I make a facial expression every time you ask me a question. I'm like, you get it. So you think that you are being very good while answering, but you make a facial expression, which actually in the Gen Z tone, I call it killing the vibe. Once you kill that vibe, the bridge of communication is already, it's not even there. So whatever things you say after that, it's not going to be understood by the other side. So I think it's for all of us to understand what's our role, and we have to make sure that we understand our role and we also understand what is the role of different stakeholders. For example, when you are a client counsel mediator who has what role, once you do that, right, now these are the things which I call prerequisites before you even enter the competition. We were talking about this, and JP Singh sir was talking about this, that it's not always about winning, which also my Professor Patricia used to say, it's also about the process. It's all about the process. If you follow the process. Now in the process, these are the initial steps. So teams which actually look into these minor things, for example, how you sit, how you put your hands. Now, in simple words, body language are these 3 things which you can just keep in mind. It's a lot of things, but I'll just tell you 3 things. One, lean 1/3 of your chair from the back. You can't sit like this. Understand this, if I give you a feedback like this, you think I'm interested in talking to you, not really. So you have to make sure that 1/3 of the chair, you leave it. Hands on the table, so that you are towards the table, you are leaving it, which means that you are interested to have a conversation. And eye contact is very important. And sir actually gave a very good example. Let's say, if I'm talking to you, and let's say somebody is not even looking at me, maybe you think that maybe I'll forget, but the other person may have an apprehension that you're not even respecting me. Once you do that, let's say this is a panel in a room setup. He asks a lot of questions. We don't ask you a lot of questions. You just make an eye contact with him. Please understand that all of us are going to mark you out in front of it. So eye contact within the room setup or the area competitions, it's very important. And time management. I think the moment I said that we have 5 minutes to go, some of you were in a hurry to say more, and it was very much evident that you wanted to cover more in lesser amount of time. And there was a caveat which I already said that if you are not able to cover all the agenda, it's fine. We'll park it. We'll have another mediation session. So the last thing which I want to add is it's not always about how much you speak. If that's the case, the people who speak more will always win. right? It's not about how much you speak. If you get convinced with 2 points every agenda, you just convince. That's how it works. So please don't think that you have to speak more to get more points, and you have to cut each other off or something on those lines. Even if you speak less, but you are more convincing, you are collegial, you get the attraction of each other. And this is the last example which I want you to leave with. When you go to these competitions, not specifically the real life ones, but competitions, West Mood, Chessa, or area competitions, when you have to, argue in a mood setup or you have to negotiate, you have to showcase, you have to paint a picture in the minds of the panel judges that you guys are the good guys. Instead of, being stubborn, so you have to think of a baby who asks for a candy to their parents. This is how you have to convince them. Once you paint that picture, I don't care how many authorities, how good you were with, creative solutions, but if you paint that picture that, I like this team. This team was actually the good people who wanted to do this, who were very accommodative, you will like that. And lastly, I would like to take a moment to thank Professor Tanaya, Nandika, the whole OCT, the drafters of the problem. And this is the first time I'm judging a competition like this. I've judged like 100 competitions so far. So this is one of its own kinds. Can I solicit a big round of applause for the OCT? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Akash. That means a lot to us.
Do you have any big questions you want to ask us?
Yeah, are there any questions?
That
Don't be shy. We're not.
I believe Poppy has a question.
If I may answer. I think both are too different. What Anisha said and what Ali said are two parallel things. You have to take the balance in making sure that you are part of the proceedings. I think what he meant was making sure that Astrospace was a part of this whole proceeding and they were involved. And what I meant that if you speak more, that doesn't mean that it's going to convert you to get more points. So you have to make sure that there is a balance. The balance, in my lens, it should be something like this. That you give the floor to everyone, you also speak for your own interest, but you don't overdo, as Anisha said. Maybe he will add to this.
I would not agree with that. It's about, again, being weighted and measured, and here we look at the best. I mean, the measure in which you responded, you spoke, it was very weighted. It's like post-timing your brain for that 10, 15 seconds and then reacted. Or having a microsecond. That's very good. Even you're nodding right now. It's control. See, these things matter, right? Because especially in mediation, when people trigger fingers move very, very quick. All of this matters. Eye contact, all these things, right? Take charge, yes, but you make someone the key to a successful mediation. And again, it's a part of all the techniques you learn, subtle NLP, neurolinguistic programming, etc. Take the charge, but never make anyone feel like they're in charge. Let them feel they're empowered themselves. Right? That is the key. If you want to take lead, so never beat your chest about it. But the other person feels, oh, yeah, I got correct. The secret, you got what you want. Okay? That again, it just takes time. Practice with your family members, your younger siblings. Yeah. I did that after my younger sister, much to her annoyance, but that's where you practice the younger skills. Anything else?
Sure. Just want to add that if you have read William Ewing and Fisher, get into this, and if not, this is a very important book that I recommend for you to read. The best negotiators listen much more than they talk. And he even speaks about it in his book, and he says 80% listen, 20% speak. This is you, this is not me. So I hope it helps for your question, if you receive your interest, if you are flowing, if you listen really good, when you need to talk, this has a lot of meaning when you're talking after your vision.
You must read that book before your next talk.
Nature actually gives you the answer.
Yeah.
You have 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
Listen more, speak less.
Okay, thank you so much. On that note, let's give a big round of applause for Thank you so much. Let's proceed to the valedictory.
So, I believe, I think we can move to the highly anticipated part of the evening now, that is the award ceremony. For that, if the participants could just take a seat in the audience, we'll clear out the stage. I would like to call upon the HR Spoiling Heads to present the awards, and we would be highly honored if the judges could facilitate the awards towards the participants.
तो वायर संभल गया बस 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 जी
Why don't you join us? Yes.
Good evening everyone, my name is Ekam Khera, I'm the scoring head for this competition and I'll be hosting the awards for the night. Before we begin with the awards, we have at special request for the judges 2 special mentions that we'd like to announce. To begin with, the first special mention, and this is not in any order, we have Shreya Rajkumar from Team Sealing representing the National University of Singapore. on to the next special mention. We have Angeline from Team Shivaji Park representing Singapore Management University. Moving on to the awards, we now have the best opening statement by a mediator. This award goes to Team Pavai Lake representing the National University of Singapore. I request Dr. Tanaya Kamlakar to please present the award to Claudia. Moving on, we now have the best opening statement by a negotiating pair. The award goes to Team C-Link, once again representing the National University of Singapore. I once again request Dr. Tanaya Kamlakar to do the honors. Moving on to the final four awards of the night, we now have the runner-up mediator. This goes to Team Juhu Beach, representing the National Academy of Legal Studies and Research. I would like to call upon Mrs. Rona Ginat to present the award to Sumedha. Now we have the runner-up negotiating pair. This award goes to Team C-Link representing the National University of Singapore. I request Mr. Anish Wadia to please present the award to Shreya and Masroor. Moving on to what I'm sure everyone's been waiting for, we now have the winning mediator. The winning mediator goes to Team Marine Drive representing the National Law School of India University. I request Dr. Akash Gupta to please present the award to, as a matter of fact, his namesake, Akash once again. And for the final award of the night, we have the winning negotiating pair. This award goes to Team Shivaji Park representing Singapore Management University. I request Mr. JP Singh to please present the award to Angeline. Congratulations to everyone present here. I now request all the judges to please take their seats. Can we once again please have a huge round of applause for all the participants and winners? I would now like to call upon Dr. Tanaya Kamlakar to please present the vote of thanks.